Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome to the School District of Waukesha, the full Board of Education meeting on Wednesday, October 14th, 2020. Thank you for joining us. Will everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to kick off our meeting? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America,
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
So will you please take the roll call?
William Baumgart.
Here.
Corey Montiel.
Here.
Greg Dietz.
Here.
Amanda Roddy. Here. Diane Voigt. Here. Patrick McCaffrey.
Here.
Kurt O'Brien.
Here.
Karen Reinacek. Here. Joseph Como.
Here. And Sue, will you also verify that the meeting's been properly posted?
Yes, it has.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just so you know, we have 19 speakers signed up to address us tonight during the citizen period of time to address the board. And typically we allot 30 minutes for this, but I'm going to expand that to an hour, and I'm going to keep this at 3 minutes per person. Okay? So just to give you a heads up. That was an idea of a constituent, by the way, to give people a heads up, so I thought that was a good idea. Moving on to we don't have bright lights tonight, but we do have some recognitions. Assistant Superintendent Dee.
Good evening. I can only see part of you. Okay, so the Employer Recognition Award. Rookie mistake. I was the first one to use the mic and it's not on. Okay, good evening. So the Employee Recognition Award for October 2020 is being presented this evening to Jamie Gensler. Jamie, please stand up. So Jamie started in the School District of Waukesha in 2014. She is currently the Principal Secretary at Lowell Elementary School. Her nominators begin by saying that Jamie does an outstanding job. She's caring, patient, organized, and positive. She does not put limits on her job and goes out of her way to do what she can for people. She is constantly answering or seeking answers to questions from parents, staff, and students. Every person who walks into the office is greeted by Jamie with a friendly smile and a desire to help. She works to make sure that students and families feel connected to the building by answering their questions, problem solving around the unknowns, and being an active listener. Jamie takes initiative, often helping both teachers and the principal to prepare for events, meetings, and building operations well in advance. On more than one occasion, Jamie has stayed at school past school hours to wait with a student who has not yet been picked up by a parent. She often brings a snack, does an activity, and provides a sense of calm when the student might feel uneasy. Last year, Lowell had a student who was put into a foster home very quickly and unexpectedly. That same week, the student was celebrating her 10th birthday. Jamie took it upon herself to go and pick up 30 cupcakes for the student to pass out to her class to celebrate her birthday. It was truly one of the most selfless and thoughtful acts, and this is the kind of thing she does daily. Lastly, and most importantly, Jamie is dedicated to creating a positive culture at Lowell. She is the face of the building, and her warm and genuine personality makes all those who enter the office feel valued, welcomed, including all students and staff. So on behalf of the School District of Waukesha, I would like to congratulate Jamie Gensler on being selected to receive the Employee Recognition Award.
I am honored to receive this award. I appreciate the support of the school board during this very challenging year. I really love working at Lowell. The staff there is like no other. Each day I am blown away with their hard work, love, and support for each kiddo that walks through our doors. I am truly inspired by the collaborative culture at Lowell, and I am so thankful that the staff welcomed me with open arms.
Thank you, Jamie, and congratulations. Thank you. Moving on, we're going to have our first report of the year from our student representatives. This month, we're hearing from our South High School students. Principal Kitzler, are you around to introduce those students? I see you. Is that you behind that man?
Yeah. Get this airplane up. All right, good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce the two students that will share a little bit of what was going on at the beginning of the year at Waukesha South High School, as well as we didn't have an opportunity to come back in the spring to kind of share some of the highlights, so we'll have a couple highlights from last spring as well. So the two students that are here today are Najwa Hatasi, she's a student council public relations, and Roman Olvera, who is our student council treasurer.
All right, good evening. We'd like to begin talking about AVID in our school. So Waukesha South is one of the few schools in the state to be named AVID School-Wide Site of Distinction. And as someone who's been a part of the AVID program at South, I have nothing but good things to say. And here you'll see a graphic collected with data of our graduating AVID class from last year. And some of the big figures to take away is that all students in the AVID class took at least one AP class, and in total, there was 144 AP classes or Project Lead the Way classes taken, as well as 100% of the graduating class believe that AVID helped them become a better student. And I can say with confidence I am one of that 100%.
Hi. So the Waukesha Engineering Academy is known for #2 ACT scores in the state, and we're named as one of the Newsweek's top STEM high schools in 2020. So for our AP tests last year, in 2019, there were 822 tests registered, and by 2020 there was 957, and we have the highest number of students registered in the district to take AP tests. The next slides will be our athletics and activities. So football, well, it's football. I don't really know what to say about football, but so usually every year we have a lot of students go to them, a lot of parents, but this year sadly we can't have a student section. But we do have a limited number of 100 students going to the football games, but it's only seniors because it's their senior year. And I know that they're still doing like themes on Fridays, like Blackout or Christmas days. Yeah.
So boys soccer. Fun fact, I went to my first soccer game last week, and a big accomplishment was that the boys varsity soccer beat CMH for the first time in over 20 years. But yeah.
And last night they beat McGonigal 3-1.
That's it. But more importantly, I think that something that's worth mentioning is that participation is an all-time high at 70+ players this season.
Okay, so boys volleyball. So as a member of the girls volleyball team, I noticed that when we're practicing for so on Wednesdays and Mondays and sometimes Fridays, our practices are cut shorter because the boys have a home game. And I've noticed that there were 3 different jerseys, and I was really confused because this year we added a JV2 team for the boys, meaning that participation is really up, and that actually makes me really happy and a bunch of other people happy because boys volleyball is often looked down on, and there's not usually a lot of participants, but our freshman participants have really participated this year. Next is girls volleyball. This year we had 50 plus people try out for the 3 teams, JV2, JV, and varsity, and we each have around 12 to 14 players. And an accomplishment this year was we actually beat Waukesha North 4-0, which it really gets our blood boiling every year, but we finally did it, and yeah. And we also took a game from McGuanago last night.
All right, so moving on to girls tennis. Our girls tennis team was selected as a Classic 8 sportsmanship team of for the 3rd year in a row. And Todd loves the sportsmanship awards that we get. And then on the right, you see Kate Hughes, voted all conference. And that's her on the right.
So girls swimming, South is going to be hosting the WIAA State End of the Year event on November 13th and 14th.
Okay, so for both boys and girls cross country, for the boys, freshman class participation is at its highest in recent history, as well as 8 personal records were set at Saturday's Classic 8 conference meet. And then also worth mentioning that every girl participant on the cross country team has PR'd, which is always great to hear.
So for girls golf, we hosted the WIAA regional and finished 5th out of the 8 teams. For the conference, we placed 4th overall, and Lilia Rather was HM all conference and qualified for the WIAA sectional.
So for our spirit squad, which includes cheerleading and dance, over 65 student athletes involved in some type of spirit squad. And most importantly, cheer placed first in the co-ed varsity small division and state runner-ups in the game division. And being state champs, that's our first state title in Waukesha South history. And then something that's also great is that cheer hosted its annual competition last December, the Southside Showdown, and it had over 1,000 athletes from across Wisconsin coming and competing.
So for HOSA, each year 15 students qualify for nationals, and we have 100 members participate.
And our decathlon team advanced through the first 2 rounds of local and regional competition to qualify for the state in 2019-2020. And first time in 5 years that Waukesha South has filled an academic decathlon program. And for student council, our Fall Spirit Week is actually next week, the 20th through 24th, and homecoming was sadly postponed to the spring.
For the drama department, we have a fall play, which is going to be a 1-act play, and it will be done virtually, sadly. Selfie by Bradley Hayward for the 1-act competition, and have it paired up with The Day the Internet Died by Ian McWethy to have a 1 night of 1 acts for our fall production. And that's it.
All right, what questions do we have? Yes, Mr. Baumgart.
Picked up, are you in the engineering academy?
No, but South has this option that even though you're not in the academy, you can still take some of the classes.
Oh, okay.
Like this year, I'm taking civil engineering and architecture, and I love it. That's all I can say.
That's good to hear. That's what I was wondering about. You have plans for architecture.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Ryan.
So I've heard a lot about this. I've heard a lot about this soccer team at South. That you got a new coach and a whole lot of kids are coming out. Is that right?
Yeah, that's about right.
Looks like it's going to be a powerhouse. Anytime you beat Catholic Memorial, that's a real good thing. McGuanago too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, Corey.
Thank you. I just wanted to take the moment to say thank you. The district and everybody involved, parents, teachers, and administrators, we spent a lot of time trying to gauge whether what we do is successful. is the curriculum helping you, the instructional model helping you. But the only real way we gauge success is our graduates. And it's students like you and young men and young women that is the leading example of how the School District Waukesha hopefully is succeeding. So thank you both. Thank you to all the students that you highlighted. Thank you to your administrators at South High School and every high school. Just thank you. Good job.
Thank you.
Just a second, we still have more questions. You can't get off the hook so soon here.
Got too excited.
This is Ryanachek.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, with all of the accomplishments and the things that you guys are doing, even though this year is very different, and you guys, I don't see anyone upset about wearing masks or even with running and cross country, you still have more people going out this year than any other. So with everything that you guys are going through, but you're still persevering and you're still doing it and you're still saying this isn't going to stop us and this is our school and we're going to have school spirit. I'm just really proud of you for all that you guys are doing, and please take that back to South and just the whole culture. Just keep it up, keep your spirits up, and thank you.
Anyone else? All right, well, thank you. We will see you again in a few months, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a quick announcement to everyone. I need to remind you that everyone needs to have a mask on that's attending this meeting and wearing it properly. So if you don't have a mask, please make sure you come out and get one, and please wear it properly. Okay, we're now at the section of our meeting where we give an opportunity to our citizens to address the Board of Education. As in the past, we will we'll have 3 minutes for each speaker. At the 2.5 minute mark, I'll have Amanda give you a signal, and if you could wind up your questions or your statements in the next 30 seconds, we would appreciate it. We expect all speakers to honor our time limit, refrain from using any inappropriate language in any manner, and be respectful in their comments. Speakers who do not meet these expectations may be prohibited from speaking at future Board of Education meetings. We also expect that the audience will be respectful of the speaker and of the Board of Education, refrain from responding with verbal comments, cheering, applause, or other behavior that will detract from the meeting. I'd also like to remind you, if you haven't done so, please silence your phones. We do have a total of 20 people signed up, and the first person is Shelby Vaught, and on deck is Carrie Kumaro.
Can I start?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi. We represent the majority of dedicated educators at North who are alarmed at the proposal to reopen with full face-to-face classes on October 20th. We respectfully request the board implement clear and transparent gating criteria to determine data-based thresholds for shifting to different modes of instruction. The last month has been a challenge at North. We have been hit hard with positive cases and massive quarantining. This has resulted with many classes having more quarantined students than physically present students. According to SDW's website, on October 10th, North had 8 active positive COVID cases and 104 students quarantined, 9.7% of our population. These numbers and the resulting educational impact have come in a hybrid model where students are able to spread out with smaller classes. Consider the illustration in your packets and emails where we follow a single student in their day in the full face-to-face model. With 1 positive case, total potential quarantined for 2 weeks, 53 students, 5% of our student population. Just one positive case. What would be the educational and health impacts with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or even our 8 cases? With the 8 positive cases at North in a full face-to-face model, potentially 40% of our school quarantined. This would be devastating from an educational and public health lens. This is why we believe it is critical for the district to implement transparent, data-driven guidelines for shifting between different instructional delivery models. Doing so would place the health of our community front and center and help guarantee a more equitable learning environment by ensuring that all families are provided all information necessary to make decisions that satisfy their concerns regarding both their health and their educational opportunities. We hope that the leaders of our district listen to the staff on the front line. As educators at North, we strongly believe that our school is not in a position to reopen with full face-to-face classes at this time, and we feel it is critical to use transparent gating criteria so that data can drive the reopening decisions moving forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Shelby. And we'll have Carrie Kumro up next, followed by Patrick Zabel. Hi, Carrie.
Hi. Good evening. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Carrie Kumro. For 23 years, I've served as a special education teacher in the school district of Waukesha. I'm also the co-president of the EAW. While I agree with many of the points that are brought up on both sides of the issue of returning to school face-to-face full-time, I'm not here to debate those points. I am here to speak on behalf of the teachers in our district who have been ignored and circumvented in regards to major decisions that directly impact them. Teachers are the ones putting in the time and the work. Their voices should carry the most weight in any decision regarding education. Yet the opinion of a small but vocal group of parents and the administration is taking precedence over all other groups, including the very people who work and learn in schools. Right now, people who have devoted their careers and lives to helping kids learn do not even have a seat at this table where decisions are being made. As teachers, we are incredibly grateful for the support and empathy we've received from countless parents during an unprecedented school year. To say the last few months have been challenging is an understatement. Many of us are parents ourselves, and we know firsthand the challenges families are facing with education during a pandemic. While we respect parents who work outside of the education sector, we do not feel that it is appropriate for their opinions to outweigh the views of teachers who are the frontline workers in our buildings with up to 30 children in a single classroom. We also do not feel that administrators should be instituting broad spectrum measures such as forcing teachers to live stream their classes the entire school day. These decisions were made without the input of teachers to live stream, and countless concerns have not been addressed because these decisions continue to be made by those who have not been in a classroom in decades, if ever. Our administration has forgotten to ask the most important people in our district what is best for our schools and our children. When people feel listened to and appreciated, they go above and beyond. When people feel as though they have no value and their opinions don't matter, it makes them feel resentful and want to do less. It is no surprise that we currently struggle to fill teaching positions with quality applicants, why we do not have enough substitute teachers, and why we cannot even fill half of the current educational assistant positions that are open. People will go where their voices are heard and where their professional opinions matter. I urge the administration and this board to pause, invite teachers to the table, and strive to come to solutions together. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Patrick, and then followed by Ellie McHenry. Hi, Patrick.
Hey, hello. How we doing? I'll try to lighten the mood maybe just a little bit here. Good evening. Many, including myself, have been critical in the past of some decisions that have come out of this room, so I thought it was only appropriate that I would come back with a hearty thank you and a heartfelt congratulations for making some really innovative and exciting decisions for parents. So thank you. That was my main objective for tonight. Allowing parents and families the choice of face-to-face education for those like myself that feel it's important, along with the virtual choice for those wanting that option, I think is really fantastic. And the addition of live streaming on the virtual side makes the virtual education even that much better. There cannot be, I really don't think, a dissatisfied student or parent in the district. Now, I'm speaking from a parent's perspective, of course, and so for me, it would seem like everybody would truly win. This is really what the parents have wanted all summer, and I think fall long is a choice. And so thank you for doing that. In addition, my understanding is moving to this new modern, what I would call everyone wins solution, is that it will help, from what I understand from some teachers, it's helping with their hybrid workloads, which have gotten to be a little bit big. And I would simply ask those that want a virtual education, perhaps some in the other room yet to speak, that they would respect the decision of those that want a face-to-face education, and vice versa. I think everybody from a parent and student perspective is getting what they wanted. There's a face-to-face option now, and there's a virtual option now, and I think it's really creative and bold, and you should be congratulated for doing that. None of the students are being forced into the schools. None of the students are being locked out of the schools. Everybody gets to make their own decision. And I think that's what a modern school these days looks like. And I think it's a real slam dunk. So thank you. I'm a little confused, and I really hope that no one comes into this room tonight from a student or parent perspective with a complaint. Really not one. You really can't accommodate the families in this district any better than with this solution, so thank you. And finally, I'll add, at next month's meeting and moving forward, please continue to allow families the choice to continue to have face-to-face instruction. Choices are very important. And thank you again. You should all feel very proud of yourselves for giving families such great options and choices with their own students' education. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. Ellie, followed by Carrie Cradwell. Hi, Ellie.
Hi. I don't think I even have a 2-minute one today. I think it's even shorter. So, I'm here today to talk about workload, and it's specifically the professional staff workload. Let's go back to March 2020. In that month, the entire staff is told that they are going to switch to online education. They figure it out. Was it perfect? No. But they gave it a go on short notice, and they learned. August 2020, and the decision was, should we go virtual, face-to-face, both? And the answer was yes. Elementary is face-to-face or virtual. Secondary is hybrid and virtual. New formats for many people. The staff adapts and sets it up. October 2020, pivot yet again. Secondary is now going face-to-face and live stream. The day-to-day schedule of most of the secondary staff in the school district of Waukesha going forward will be to take temperatures, clean desks, and monitor hallways at the same time, I might add. Prepare lesson plans for face-to-face and live stream for those who choose to stay home or have to stay home due to quarantine. Cover or sub for staff members who are out sick or quarantined, and cover lunch duty due to open aid positions. The schedule for the elementary staff is similar. They take temperatures, feed them breakfast, clean desks, monitor recess and/or lunch, clean desks, books, manipulatives, and take extra students into their classrooms if no subs are available. All of this is in addition to all of the usual things the staff does. They do MAPS testing, running records, lesson planning, grading, educator effectiveness, state testing, building meetings, sale meetings, IEP meetings, parent-teacher meetings. Where does it end? When does it end? How much do you want the staff to do? At what point is it just no longer possible? Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. Okay, Carrie, followed by Tristan Watson. Hi, Carrie, and thank you for helping me with the pronunciation of your last name.
It's always
Did I still murder it?
No, you did great. You did perfect. My name is Carrie Cradwell, and this is my first year teaching here at SDW. I first want to say how happy I am to be part of this district. As a new teacher in the district, I have felt extremely supported, both at my building level and at the district level. This is not my first year teaching, but this is a new frontier for all, even those of us that have been around for a little while. I'm not going to talk about statistics and science because they can speak for themselves and have been thrown around for months on end. I want to share with you my COVID story, as I'm certain it is similar to others in this community and across our state and country. I'm not a parent, but I do consider myself a pretty amazing aunt. Over the summer, I had my 11-year-old nephew come to Milwaukee and stay with me for a week to give my phenomenal sister a much-deserved and needed break. By the end of the week, we were back in Madison at urgent care, where he was running 102 temp and throwing up profusely. They did a rapid strep test that was negative and a COVID test. Not for 1 second did I think that that test would be coming back positive. We were careful, we did all the things we were supposed to do, we wore the masks, we didn't go places. This is a picture of him that I sent to his parents, not for but I'm a teacher, so there's visual aids and all. Okay. Fast forward to Saturday when my sister received that call that he did test positive. The guilt that I felt for him being with me and testing positive was tremendous. People don't talk about the highly emotional journey that you're forced to take when you get that call. Not only the person that tested positive, but many people around them, especially the parents of school-aged children. He was isolated in his room for 10 days. No dinner with his family, no movie nights, no getting to play outside. His 9-year-old sister was quarantined for 14 days. His father missed 2 weeks of work due to quarantine, and his amazing aunt also ended up with COVID. His 73-year-old grandma was in tears for days because her grandson was sick and she was terrified. Contacts to family members and friends had to be made, and one of the hardest things to do is to call someone and tell them that they have been exposed or you have put their life in danger. All in all, we were very lucky that our case was what some call mild. We made it work and we made the best of it. Imagine this happening over and over for families here in our community. Because of the exposure, students will face 5 days face-to-face. Many families will not be able to make it work. As an educator, I want nothing more than to return to normal. I want to work with the students 5 days face-to-face.
30 seconds.
I want to see students collaborate. I want to supervise the smelly lunchrooms. I want to stand in the hallway and greet students with handshakes. These normal activities are hopefully not over, but on hold. A wise woman said, "We can't make everyone happy, but we can make everyone safe." Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Carrie.
Yep.
Tristan, followed by Joey Jacobs. Tristan?
Yes.
Welcome.
Good evening to Mr. Como and to everybody else. My name is Tristan Watson, and I am a senior at West High School. I'm here today to explain to you all as to why we should not reopen Waukesha secondary schools, and I shall do so by examining the other side of my argument. One major reason why people want schools to reopen in the first place is because they don't learn well in an online environment, and it negatively affects their mental health. Mental health, in my opinion, is an aspect that should be given greater attention in the schools. But let us not glance over the fact that normalized school settings can also negatively affect somebody's mental health, and that is in no way helped by a pandemic. With that said, I would like to propose a new method entirely. Similarly to how Waukesha schools operated from March of 2020 to June of 2020, schools should simplify their curriculums. This meaning prevent grades from dropping below a certain point and easing up on summative assessments. This can allow for those who don't learn well in an online environment to feel less stress about the work they have to get done. This won't necessarily be an immediate fix to the problems they may be having, but it will be a better alternative to what they might be going through. Overall, though, there should be less of a focus on delivering a normalized education because we are not in a normalized setting. Wisconsin is the United States epicenter for COVID-19, and as of today, Waukesha County has had 9,532 confirmed cases, the fourth biggest number of cases in a county in the entire state, being followed by Dane, Brown, and Milwaukee counties. We cannot afford to return to fully in-person classes, especially not on the basis that we simply want to. Otherwise, it just increases the likelihood of the return to fully virtual classes, which even fewer people want. For the record, I wish schools could be fully in person too. I was really excited to have my final marching band season and to be able to be with all my friends again. But I am more than willing to give all of that up if that can keep myself and others around me safe. We will never find a method of education that works for everybody. So let's focus on keeping the students and the teachers safe first and foremost. Our education is not worth risking our health and our lives over. And if the district is being pressured into opening schools based on want from parents and students alone, then we must think about what really matters. Do you want to have good grades and the convenience of your education, or do you want to be safe from risking the loss of your life or the life of a loved one? Thank you.
Thank you, Tristan. Joey, followed by Rob Severson. Joey Jacobs. Okay. Hi, Joey.
Hi.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Joey, and I'm a junior at Waukesha North High School. I came to last week's meeting and invited you all to a tour of my school to show you how the 4 to 5 day week will not only be unsafe, but unsustainable. You've all received an email from me stating my availability, and I look forward to scheduling tours with all of you. I want you to see firsthand the classrooms and hallways that are already too crowded. I want you to see the teachers that are running out of disinfectant supplies. I want you to see the desks that are already too close together. I want you to see the empty desks of sick kids. You need to see what it looks like inside of our schools, the schools that you are supposed to represent and that you work for. 2/3 of you will have terms that expire after I become a voter. Some of you may run for re-election. Believe me when I tell you that what is currently happening and what has happened, I will not forget, and I will vote accordingly. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you, Joey. Rob, followed by Stephen Mattson. Stephen or Stefan? Hi, Rob.
Hi there. Good evening. My name is Rob Severson. Before I start, I just want to take a second and say how proud I am. The kids talking the civic engagement is really something special. We don't get that every day. And I'm emotional because this means a lot to me. So I am a staff member, but more importantly, as a school district of Waukesha parent and a taxpayer, because I've heard people say that means something. The teaching profession is a blend of art and science. Art being the unquantifiable, you know it when you see it aspect that I believe makes school such a special place. However, in an effort to once again enjoy the art of teaching and learning, it is a science of education and policy we need now to focus on. As a professional educator, I'm fully aware and versed in the creation of SMART goals. Goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. While Dr. Sieber presented a reopening plan shortly before the start of the school year embracing these elements, it was unfortunately turned down. Mr. Montillo has repeatedly stated that he doesn't know what else can realistically be done to make people feel safe. I would like to respond by stating that the creation and adherence to transparent metrics is an enormous component needed to address both confidence and safety. Perhaps this should have been the starting place when building a plan last summer, specifically gating metrics. Any practice not focused on SMART goals is careless, arguably reckless, and possibly endangering. The district has placed enormous investments into operating safely, yet it appears the aforementioned elements are missing. I could pontificate as to why, but I digress. My final request is that an effort is made to not excite an audience by manipulating numbers one way or another, either to make them seem more or less consequential than they are. Please follow the guidance of healthcare and policy officials. It may be an appropriate time to quote a famous saying by a misattributed work to Mark Twain. He talks about the 3 types of lies, and I'll save you from the language of that, but the last of which is statistics. Let's not go down that road. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope your evening is productive. You have an extremely important job ahead of you, and I'm proud of all of you. Thank you.
Rob? Stephen or Stefan, I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce first name. And Lalo Lemus is on deck.
It is Stephen.
Stephen, okay, thank you.
Happens all the time.
I have a friend who's Stefan and it's spelled the same way, and I
Believe
can
me,
never figure it out.
all the time. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Stephen Matson. I'm a band director at West High School and Les Paul Middle School. And on behalf of dozens of teachers throughout the district, I implore you to reconsider the proposed reopening plan and to vote tonight to maintain the current hybrid model. Now, the data-driven argument against further reopening has been discussed at length, and I do not intend to rehash it. Rather, I would simply ask you to consider those who will be most affected by your plan. First, consider students who will have to choose to learn virtually under this plan. Put yourself in their shoes and imagine how disengaged you would be by being forced to watch live stream classes, likely with poor audio quality, where you are a mere afterthought of your teacher. Imagine the emotional toll of seeing your friends interact with each other in person while you simply sat and watched them do so at home. Imagine a science lab where you would be forced to try to replicate live experiments with makeshift at-home equipment. Or imagine band, my content area, where despite your best efforts to play along in person, you'd have to be muted due to the sound delay issues. Simply put, these students will receive a second-rate education for the sin of choosing to prioritize their family's health and safety. Needless to say, this is a major equity issue. Next, consider teachers who now have twice been given less than 3 weeks' notice to try to redesign their entire classes. In addition to fearing for their safety, teachers will be extremely overworked due to the need to provide extra attention to virtual students outside of school hours in order to provide them with any semblance of a respectable education. They will also be incredibly stressed by trying in vain to meaningfully engage 2 groups of students at once. Consider face-to-face students. Many of these students will be among the 1,300 who signed a petition against this plan, but will feel pressured to remain in person for the sake of their educations. They will feel unsafe in the one place where they should always feel safe, which is their school, and their educations will suffer as their teachers suffer. Furthermore, consider building administrators. They are already incredibly busy professionals, and you are now asking them to solve truly unsolvable problems related to distancing, safety, and educational equity. And finally, consider yourself. If the unthinkable were to happen, and would you really feel comfortable having authorized a plan that led directly to the death of a human being? If so, you're a stronger person than I. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Lalo Limas, or Lalo, I'll ask you how to pronounce your name properly when you get here, sorry. Followed by Jenna Pocky. How do you pronounce your name? I'm sorry.
My name is Lalo Lemos.
Lalo Lemos.
Yeah.
Welcome, Lalo.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Just to preface this, I thought this was going to be a 2-minute thing, or 2-minute speech, so here we go. I got 2 minutes to express my concern. I got 2 minutes to be completely ignored. 2 minutes before you cut me off because you have an agenda to fulfill. 2 minutes before I try to convince you to take this serious. As hospital beds begin to fill, ask yourself, are you willing to make that decision that could possibly kill? Or maybe not. You see, this is all a conspiracy plot. Because as we all argue against science or for science, the virus doesn't really care, and neither do some of our leaders. United we stand, divided we will fall. And we are falling and failing our children. 2 minutes to tell you numbers don't lie. With hundreds or thousands of deaths per day, we all cried and stood united when we saw those twin towers fall. COVID has claimed 70 9/11 so far. But hey, who's counting? As Stalin once said, a single death is a tragedy. A million is just a statistic. Not sure about you, but I don't care to take part in those numbers. You see, I prefer life over livelihood. Life over livelihood. Numbers cannot describe all the missed smiles, all the missed hugs, and all the missed love. 2 minutes to tell you that our teachers are drowning. 2 minutes to say we all want to go back face to face, but not now. 2 minutes to say, please, don't force it. 2 minutes to say it's not about fear, it's about what is best for our community. And going back now is not it. As my 2 minutes run out, I'd like to say and hope that your time does not. Because as leaders, we need you to be the leaders we need you to be and make the tough decisions based on what is best for our students, teachers, parents, and grandparents, not political pressure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lalo. Jenna, followed by Jenny Rath. Hi, Jenna.
Hi there. I'm Jenna Pocky, a speech-language pathologist at the secondary level, where I travel between 3 schools each week. I've emailed all of you, but I wanted to highlight a couple points today. So as I speak, I would ask that you all move your chairs a bit closer together, and then if you could remove your masks like you were going to have lunch together. Because after all, that's what you are expecting us to do with over 1,000 students at North High School starting on Tuesday. Earlier this week, North High School had 8 active student cases of COVID, plus additional staff and students quarantining. How many students and staff need to get sick before you take any action? We need gating criteria. As a staff member, I have not yet been asked for any feedback on our current instructional model or to offer any input on potential reopening plans. Did you know for many of my students, virtual speech sessions are more effective right now? In a virtual session, we can both safely remove our masks to see each other's mouths, which is imperative for therapy targeting speech sound production and reading facial expressions. Virtual sessions allow us to work in small groups with students from different classes, which is not a safe option in our current model. Students are scared, and I am scared. My husband and son and my parents are all in high-risk groups, as am I. I feel disheartened that I need to be pleading my case to you. I am not expendable, and my family can't afford this risk. I realize you're in a tough situation, but at its core, your decision is quite obvious. The health and safety of those you serve and educate should always take priority over all other factors. So as I close, I notice you're all sitting still 6 feet apart from each other, and you all still have your masks on. Please allow us that same protection at the secondary level. I cannot educate a student who is sick, and I cannot educate a student when I am sick. Full face-to-face is not safe for us yet, and we're relying on you to keep us safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenna. Jenny, followed by Sarah Vandenhoel. Welcome, Jenny.
Good?
Yes,
Okay.
welcome, Jenny.
Thanks. Good evening.
A little cumbersome here for us, but we're there.
Oh, great. Okay. So, as he said, my name is Jenny Rath, and I am a teacher at Butler Middle School. But tonight, I am here serving as my role as the Vice President of the EAW to present to you a letter of concern that was collaboratively written by SDW staff. The staff has concerns and feels that we were left out of the decision-making process, even though we are the ones who are going to implement these decisions. In just 3 days, over 650 staff, parents, community members, and alumni have signed on in support of the points raised in this letter. Many of these individuals gathered tonight wearing green to support our cause, and the number of signatures is growing as I speak. The letter asks the board and the district leadership for 3 actions. First, we need clear, consistent, and specific gating criteria. We need to use data to determine when it would be appropriate to shift to a different mode of instruction. What specific criteria would need to be met for us to close a school, to reopen a school after closure, to move from hybrid to full face-to-face? These are the types of questions that should be answered by specific gating criteria. Elmbrook, Greendale, and many other districts have such gating criteria. We need to have that too. Secondly, leadership needs to solicit regular feedback from all stakeholders. It is critical for the district to collect regular feedback from teachers, students, and families as part of a systematic feedback cycle. Decisions should be based upon current data, not surveys from several months ago. We all know how quickly things change with this disease. Finally, we need to implement consistent guidelines for return to school after illness. For the safety of everyone, we need clear policies that are implemented the same way in every school. For instance, if a student or staff member is out due to illness, the district could require a return to work form signed by a physician, or any number of things. These are the collective voices and requests from the front lines. 30 seconds. We love our students and we love our jobs, but we also need to know that our safety is a primary concern through the implementation of specific criteria as outlined in this speech. We need to feel that our voices are heard, respected, and included in the decision-making process. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny.
Yes, sir.
I said thank you. Yeah. Sarah, followed by Shelley Kindrive. Hi, Sarah.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Sarah Vanden Heuvel. I'm a teacher and a parent in the district, but tonight I'm not speaking for myself, I'm speaking for someone else. I'm actually speaking on behalf of Rochelle Kozelik, who is a teacher in the district. Again, these are her words, and Rochelle has asked me to speak them for her. Thank you, board members, for all of your time and dedication. You are all appreciated. I would be here, but unfortunately I cannot, as I am in quarantine due to having had contact with a student who tested positive for COVID-19. I, like many of my colleagues, have concerns with the decision being made to fully return face-to-face, welcoming all students back into our buildings. This full return comes at a time when Wisconsin is considered one of the nation's hot spots or epicenters, and we are actively creating a field hospital in Milwaukee. The hybrid model is allowing us to use social distancing and, in my opinion, has helped to keep our school and district numbers at a reasonable level. Returning fully will make social distancing impossible. With the dramatic increase of cases in Wisconsin, this is not the time to transition back fully face-to-face. As the board moves forward to make decisions about how students will be educated, I ask that you please consider the safety of your students and their families, teachers and their families, and the Waukesha community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Shelley, followed by Sarah Harrison. Hi, Shelley.
Hi there. Hi, I'm a parent of a high school student who is neither in favor of going 5 days fully virtual or 5 days fully face-to-face. I'm also an educator in this district. Many people have spoken tonight about why data shows fully face-to-face is not safe and does not provide a learning environment that promotes consistency for our children, because more than twice as many of them and their teachers will be in quarantine. I want to tell you why 5 days virtual is also not an equitable option for students who are concerned about safety. The response I hear from the group of parents who only want face-to-face 5 days a week is, if you don't like it, then stay home and live stream. Live stream is being held up as the holy grail, our technological wizardry solution to everything COVID. But the students who want fully virtual already chose eAchieve. These students chose hybrid because they want to be back in the classroom. Many students who do not trust the full face-to-face situation with double the classmates and half the distance do not want to be live streaming from home 5 days a week. They want to be face-to-face as much as they can also. And 2 days a week works. But how would you know? You have not asked them or their parents or any teachers. We have an amazing IT department in this district. However, they can only control the school side of the screen. WebEx is glitchy if your Wi-Fi is not great. I work in a non-district building, and sometimes I'm in meetings where I get every fourth word, my screen freezes and the audio stops. Now imagine that the teacher isn't tuned into you and you're at home and the teacher has no idea that you aren't getting the video feed because she's focused on John or Sue in the physical classroom. And again, you no longer have a recording to fall back on. This is a two-person job, expected to be done by one teacher. This is completely unlike the situation where two teachers at South ran one class and live streamed to North for a BC Calc class last year. Which group is going to get the short end of the stick when one teacher is teaching in person? Who knows, but I bet it's virtual. We have not even tried it out yet. How can we tell parents that it's workable? This is something teachers would have to do while they're wearing full PPE, responding to WebEx questions, and cleaning twice as many desks between classes. Have you ever been working online at home and been kicked off the Wi-Fi due to kids streaming a movie? Kicked off due to overload of your bandwidth? This will happen. I see it happen on individual WebEx calls I have with my students who don't have good Wi-Fi service in their homes. Are we really okay with saying, oh well, too bad, so sad? And here's the kicker. If you miss it, you miss it. There will be no recording of the live stream for your students to watch later. Solutions, buy a second router, beef up the Wi-Fi, that costs money, and that's grocery money for many families. One of my friends has to use her phone as a hotspot to share between her two sons. We cannot pretend everyone has the means to receive the live stream, even if every teacher can manage to send it out effectively.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.
Okay, Sarah, followed by Kylie Homer. Hi, Sarah.
Hello. So we've heard students speak today about setting personal records, which is fantastic. Wisconsin is also setting records every day. Record cases of COVID, record hospitalization rates, and record death rates. Wisconsin cases are growing. Waukesha County cases are growing. Each of you did receive an email from me this week showing you some graphics that represented the cases, and as you can see, they are on a clear upswing. This is not the time for us to increase the risk by exposing children to twice as many of their peers on a daily basis. I want to clarify something that was said by another parent earlier. This is not a win-win situation. This is not a win for parents, this is not a win for teachers, and it's certainly not a win for students. As a parent, I am not satisfied with the proposal to move forward with 100% class capacity classes. It is irresponsible, and it does not take our students' safety to heart. As a parent, I have a choice. I have a choice between my kids getting the kind of education I would like them to have, where they have at least some face-to-face as they have in the hybrid model, or to prioritize their health and to make sure that they stay safe. You're asking me as a parent, is the education more important or is their health more important? And that is an impossible situation to put parents in. At least I have a choice, though. The teachers do not have a choice. They are going to have to abide by whatever choice is made here. The people with the choice are you in front of me, esteemed board members, and I implore you to choose to continue the hybrid schedule and to choose student, staff, and community health above politics and the interest of a small but vocal group. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Kylie, followed by Paul Reese. Hi, Kylie.
Hello. Hello, my name is Kylie Homar, and I'm a senior at Waukesha West High School. The speech I'm about to give may be called a lot of things. Passive-aggressive, blunt, childlike. Childlike. If that's supposed to discredit me, it doesn't here, because I am a child. We are children. Maybe not for much longer, but for right now. And we are talking about right now. We are children who are scared and trying to find reassurance that it will all be okay. Trying to see that there are measures in place to maintain our safety. Trying to see if the research and science are being followed. But we are not reassured because the research and science aren't being followed. If we aren't social distancing, cases will not stay low. Wisconsin is the epicenter for the COVID-19 virus. Anyone with the view that we will be safe without the research and science recommended safety measures is acting in childlike naivety. I know there are some board members that don't support going back in person for 4 days a week. Those of you who do, I ask that you please open your minds and join them. With your help, we can change this decision. We need you to use your position to help us. We need you to be our voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Kylie. Paul, followed by Maggie Morose.
Good evening. I can't even see half of you. I want to say that nothing in this world happens in a vacuum. So to say that we are going to keep kids home is going to keep them safe is to say they're just not going to be anywhere. They're going to be in a vacuum. Everything is in a vacuum. If I'm not at a school teaching, I'm in a vacuum. I'm not going to be anywhere, and I'm not going to do anything that could ever cause me to come in contact with the COVID-19 virus. That's not the way life works. That's not the way it is. And it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't happen that way. It comes to you in the most least opportune time. If you had to take a number and you had to say, in order to
mask up, Paul, please. Thank you.
To get to immunity, herd immunity, that number is going to happen no matter what you do. You can say you can try to stretch it. It's going to get there. There's no way of getting around it. Doctors in hospitals fight viruses or bacteria, which is slightly bigger. They fight bacteria like crazy, and they cannot beat it. The first thing that happens when you're come out of surgery is they give you antibiotics to fight bacteria, to keep infection, because they cannot beat bacteria. How are we going to beat this? We're not. Life isn't in a vacuum. I have to go to work. So it comes down to this. I have to go to work. People want toilet paper, right? Someone has to go make this toilet paper for them. I'm one of the people who used to make big rolls for the industry that rolls plastic and that. Someone has to do these things if you want toilet paper. Someone has to go do that. My money, my wages go so far. I have a daughter who's 13 years old. There's no way I would leave her home alone. So now I'm supposed to take care of her and put her somewhere for every day that I pay. I have to pay extra because I already pay for her to go to school. The only one that's asked to pay extra is the parents. They have to have someone watch their kids. The teachers, we get less. There's no pain on that side. There is no pain. They're scared. Well, I'm scared. I'm not scared. I refuse to live my life in fear. I absolutely refuse to. I've known too many people who have died and it happens suddenly. I will not live my life in fear. And to say that I have to go to work and you don't have to go to work because you're afraid to do your job, but I have to do my job so you can have something to wipe your ever-expanding backside? No, that's not the way life works. We're all in this together. We all do things together. You need me and I need you. And I don't mean to be rude about it, but I do. We do need each other. We aren't in this alone. This is something that affects everybody, and the mental health is important to our kids, especially the little ones who have to look at Darth Vader all day because they're so afraid that they're going to catch something and they might die. You know, it is the equivalent. Some people have what?
Thank you, Paul.
Is it 3 minutes?
It is, yes.
Oh, I didn't hear it's time. Thank you very much.
Maggie, followed by Tom Piacek. Welcome, Maggie.
Hi, my name is Maggie Morose, and I'm a senior at Waukesha West. And before I get started with my speech, let me just say, contrary to popular belief, as a student, we do want to learn. If we have to be at home, we will be learning. We will be in front of that camera, and we will be following along with our teachers, who will be on the other end, also doing their jobs because they don't have an option to go virtual. Let me just say that. So by now, most of you should be familiar with my name and my reasons for opposing the face-to-face plan, and none of this has changed, of course. So today, instead of logos and ethos, I'm going to be using pathos. My mom is a teacher at Butler, and she is extremely high risk, and I'm terrified for her safety. And let me just say, even right now, like, you guys are failing her. She can't be in the room to watch my speech because there's a man in there not wearing his mask properly. Actually, she's right there. Never mind. But she's scared. I can't imagine if I lost her, and you're increasing that risk for me. Teaching gives her joy and meaning. But lately she's been more exhausted than usual, and rightfully so. I'm often not able to sleep at night, and when I go downstairs at midnight or 1 in the morning and she's still awake, worrying about things that are going to happen or stressing about how to structure her classroom so that everyone is as safe as possible while maintaining the best learning possible. I've heard the argument from some members of the board that this is what's going to be best for the students' social and emotional health. While some of you are still clinging onto this claim with circumstantial evidence to support it at best, you're neglecting to think about the social and emotional health of your teachers, the people that you employ and pay. You, the Board of Administration, and the board and administration are responsible for addressing any concerns and distress that the teachers have brought you. You can support them by supporting the students. Help us give teachers a less stressful situation in which they do not need to worry about being safe and the next new change that should be put on their plate. We need stability, not constant pivoting. I know that there are some members of the board who support going back face-to-face. For those of you who don't, I'm asking you to keep your minds open and join them. Together, we can change this decision, and I urge you to do it tonight before we go back to school. We need you to be our voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. Tom, followed by Nola Hennon.
Good evening.
Hi, Tom.
Hi. Headline from the Atlantic: schools aren't super spreaders. Fears from the summer appear to be overblown. From the Washington Post: Europe stays committed to in-person classes as school outbreaks are rare. Remember, the Washington Post and the Atlantic are not known for downplaying COVID. We don't need data from Europe or the rest of the country, though. Right in our backyard, there are plenty of examples of high schools in person 5 days without any outbreaks within the schools. Here are some of the current COVID totals in those schools. Some schools do not list cases less than 5 for privacy. So we have Brookfield East, 5. Brookfield Central, less than 5. McGuanago, less than 5. Muskego, less than 5. Sussex, 5. Kettle Moraine, 0. And Berlin West and Eisenhower, less than 5. For reference, Waukesha North is now down to 4, and West and South are at 2. Can kids spread it? Sure. But it's not readily happening in the schools. If it were, trust me, it would be all over the news. For the people concerned about the 6-foot spacing, people need to remember that 6 feet is a CDC number. The World Health Organization is at 1 meter for spacing, which is probably sufficient in this age group. I do realize numerous schools across Wisconsin have switched from face-to-face to virtual in the past weeks, and I feel bad for the families in those districts. It's a mindset from March or April to punish kids even though schools aren't driving the cases. It's really unfortunate. So yes, moving to 4 days face-to-face is definitely a step in the right direction. One thing that isn't an issue for everyone on both sides is the quarantining. And no, we haven't been doing any better in the hybrid model with our quarantine rate than the schools in 5 days face-to-face. The quarantines are a big problem for students, staff, and families, and a nightmare for kids playing sports. And these quarantines almost never result in cases. The answer can't be to go virtual just because of quarantines. Iowa, Wyoming, and Nebraska have stopped quarantining students if they are wearing masks. Of course, we all know there is zero chance that Tony Evers and Andrea Palm will help with this, but maybe we could get help from the county. Ben Jones, the county health director, unfortunately does not seem interested in gathering data on quarantines turning into illnesses, much less doing anything about it. He is just deferring to the state. I think Waukesha, as the largest district in the county, needs to lead on this. We need to gather our own data to show quarantines aren't turning into cases. Hopefully with other districts doing the same thing, we can take that information directly to County Executive Farrell. We can't just punt, though, and risk being forced to going virtual because of quarantines, not cases. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Noah? Hi, Nola.
Hi, my name is Nola, and I'm currently a sophomore at Waukesha South. And as much as I would love to go face-to-face and see all my friends again, right now is not the time. During online schooling, I experienced mental obstacles such as depression and difficulty with learning. My mom, a month ago, just had a major surgery and is severely immunocompromised. I'd rather work harder through these unprecedented times than risk putting my family or any of your guys' families at risk. Okay, so the plan that you guys have right now, social distancing is not available. As someone that experiences it every single day, or 2 days a week, it is definitely not available. And even if I do choose to go online, going full face-to-face is not doing our part to put a stop to this pandemic. And it, as I said before, it is not just for me. And that includes the teachers that are forced in positions that exceed their job description. today I saw one of my teachers burst into tears during class. Someone who we as students are meant to look for strength and guidance. They're scared and so am I. I hope sharing the perspective of someone directly influenced by this plan will be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Nola. Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for your comments tonight. Moving on to the next part of our meeting, we have minute approval. There are a couple sets of minutes for our consideration here. September 16th, 2020, we had a public hearing on the budget, and on September 16th also, we had our regular Board of Education meeting. Do I have a motion for approval of those minutes? Moved by Diane. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Amanda. Discussion, corrections? Looks accurate. All right, Sue, please take the roll call vote.
Corey Montiel.
Aye.
William Baumgart.
Aye.
Patrick McCaffrey.
Aye.
Karen Reinacek. Kurt O'Brien.
Aye.
Amanda Roddy.
Aye.
Greg Dietz.
Aye.
Diane Voigt. Aye. Joseph Como.
Aye. Passes 9-0, Sue. Moving on to our communications part of the meeting, we'll start with Superintendent Siebert.
None to report, President Cole.
Okay, thank you. Diane, do you happen to have a Waukesha Education Foundation report?
I do.
Excellent.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do a brief report. One's breaking news. WEF is so pleased to announce that Generac has upgraded their sponsorship level and is joining GE Healthcare as our second platinum sponsor, with an annual commitment of $5,000. During a year of business downturns and economic uncertainty, our foundation has added $12,500 just this year, with 5 new silver sponsors, 2 new gold sponsors, plus this $2,500 upgrade from Generac. So WEF is so appreciative of our community support even in these challenges. Dr. Jim Siebert was officially approved as the newest member of the Waukesha Education Foundation Incorporated Board of Directors as of October 1st. And we are holding a Meet the Superintendent, like a meet and greet kind of situation, a virtual coffee town hall at 9 a.m. on November 12th for him to meet the rest of the Board of Directors. And if you know of any prospective sponsors who'd like to join us, let me know and I can pass that information on to Lynette to get them an invitation to join us for this evening. My last announcement was received with enthusiasm by the staff. Go Casual for a Cause is back. Starting on Thursday, October 22nd, staff members can donate $5 to the Waukesha Education Foundation for the opportunity to wear jeans and a comfortable top to work on Casual Thursdays. We will have 10 specific days for this annual fundraiser, and because we are getting a late start, we'll carry it over into January. Just shake off those bad vibes of 2020. Last year, we raised over $14,000 for WEF and another $2,500 for the Christmas Clearing Council with Casual Thursdays. So we very much appreciate that our new superintendent was willing to support that kind of fundraising initiative. The elementary and secondary schools that raise the most will have a delicious donut bagel breakfast or pizza lunch delivered to their staff. So all proceeds go directly to the Waukesha Education Foundation Grants Fund, which awards grants to our schools. So this is definitely a win-win situation for all. Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Just a quick question. How does virtual coffee work?
You come with your own coffee.
Oh, okay.
You come with your coffee and then are able to join us for a virtual discussion.
Gotcha. Thank you, Diane. Moving on to our charter school and program report given by Bill Baumgart.
Yes, I just have a couple items to share with you tonight. Relative to the STEM Academy, there has been an increase in interest in the adult participation for our STEM Academy. As such, this has shown an increase in parents and others interested in joining the STEM Governance Board. Therefore, the existing Governance Board decided to increase their board membership from 7 to 9 members. This is in concert with both the contract we have and with their bylaws. Positive thing, that's good to see. The other item is regarding the Engineering Academy and South High School. I already shared this with Dr. Siebert and Kevin before he previously. While I was out getting some physical exercise recently, And in the process of chatting with several other gentlemen that were with me, it came out that I was on the school district of Waukesha's board. Well, one of them heard this and couldn't say enough about South High School and the engineering academy. He's from another district, but his son is here as an enrolled student. Dad was emphatic about the great education his son is getting at WEPA, but beyond that, his comments extended to the entire South, the community, the attention to COVID procedures, and he was really big on that one because he says he's got a kid in another district that they don't see the things that we see. They don't do the things that we do so well. I say that straight. So the community, the procedures followed, the staff that's been courteous and meaningful to them, and that concludes that announcement.
Okay, thank you, Bill. It's always exciting when you around a community and yeah, that's great. That's
Better
great.
than my golf game was.
Moving on to the consent agenda, we'll start. Mr. Clark, did we have any donations to report on?
Yeah, Waukesha North High School received a Mercury Sable automobile with an estimated value of $1,000 from Mike Kipp. This gift will be used in our auto repair classes.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Our consent agenda includes various items for our approval. We did not have any expulsions this month. So is there anything that any of you would like to have set aside for separate consideration out of the consent agenda? Okay, Mr. O'Brien, will you please present the consent agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Como. Earlier this evening, the Human Resources and Compensation Committee approved a one-year contract. Information is provided in your packet, and I move that the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Is there a second to that? Second by Mr. Dietz. Discussion? Okay, Sue, please take the roll call.
Greg Dietz.
Aye.
Karen Reinacek. Aye. Corey Montiel.
Aye.
Patrick McCaffrey.
Aye.
Diane Boyd. Aye. William Baumgart.
Aye.
Kurt O'Brien.
Aye.
Amanda Roddy.
Aye.
Joseph Como.
Aye. Passes 9-0, Sue. Thank you, Kurt. Moving on to Superintendent Siebert's report.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Como, and good evening, everyone. First of all, I'd like to let you know, in case you missed it, last week was School Board Appreciation Week, and we did some special, with Mary Jo's help, recognitions on social media and highlighting you and staying in touch as well. So just wanted to say thank you for your commitment and dedication to the School District of Waukesha, and it's very much appreciated and certainly does make a difference. So thank you.
Thank you.
What we'll walk into here next is, as you well know, this is perhaps the most stressful time that we've perhaps ever had in K-12 education on a number of levels. And obviously we have COVID-19 and everything that goes along with that from a social, emotional, and academic perspective, from the school district perspective. But there's many other pieces, obviously, for kids, parents, staff, community members, things like cancellations, closures, anxiety, limited social opportunities, economic distress, and overall I think people are just tired on a number of different levels. We build on top of that the racial tension and protests that we've had very close to us here and across the country, and then we throw on top of that a presidential election in just under 3 weeks, and you can easily see what is causing stress, anxiety, and general uncomfortableness in many, many people. So what we're truly lacking right now, in my personal opinion, on many levels, is consistency and predictability. And what our elementary kids have gone through as they've gone back to school 5 days a week with their teachers, they've been flourishing and things have been going very well at the 4K5 level. When we look at our middle school and high school students, and we look at the hybrid model, which has been successful. I certainly want to say that. It has helped us get off to a good start in the school year. It has helped us really practice our mitigation strategies. But from a consistency perspective, as of today, high school and middle school students have had 17 days of remote learning as part of the hybrid. And so that in and of itself is more than one full quarantine period. So in the spirit of taking a step forward, our collective goal has been getting back to 5 days of in-person instruction at the secondary level and providing more consistency. We've been working administratively to come up with, since the last week in September, a granular path to move forward to get kids more consistency and more in-person learning. And what we began investigating was a way that we could use Mondays differently. Mondays as a full in-person day, Mondays as a hybrid day, potentially. And the more we talked, we soon turned to this Monday virtual option and 4 days of in-person learning. And what we can use that Monday for is the virtual learning that I mentioned, but also some teacher preparation and collaboration time, which is desperately needed, and a day to catch up on contact tracing, as the weekends are very, very busy when we get our case information from the county for our tracing team and our nurses. So we also wanted to communicate any type of change that we would have at least 2 weeks in advance, so people had time to plan, and in this case we had almost 2.5 weeks of advanced notice. And we like this path forward for several reasons. Number one, it gets kids and teachers back together where teaching and learning is best and where we are at our best. Number two, we can adhere to all of our mitigation strategies with the exception of social distancing, which we've been very clear from the outset that we can't accomplish consistently at any level. It gives kids, number three, kids and families an option by offering virtual instruction via Blackboard from October 19th to November 2nd, and then live streaming in a window into the classroom beginning on November 2nd. Number four, our calendar sets up very nicely to begin implementation of this model on October 19th, which then gives us 5.5 days of in-person instruction prior to the end of the month school calendar break, along with 6 days of in-person instruction prior to the November 11th board meeting, where we could assess progress and the path forward beyond that point. And then after that, we have less than 2 weeks until the Thanksgiving break and just another 3 weeks until our winter or holiday break. So it's very clear, and Dr. Cook deserves a tremendous amount of credit for this, our mitigation strategies in the schools are working. And earlier today, and he talked about that in the HR committee earlier, we had 17 student cases among nearly 12,000 students and 347 quarantines. And today we also had 5 staff cases and 42 quarantines amongst 1,500 plus staff members. So on a total level, we've had 474 elementary quarantines, 426 secondary quarantines, 24 elementary cases or isolations to date, and 45 secondary cases to date. So overall, we feel that our data is favorable for an adjustment in our model. And what I'd like to do is walk you through a presentation that similar to that I did at the September board meeting, where we look at those internal and external factors that we are monitoring as we think about instructional models and adjustments. So let me figure that out here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the first thing I'll point out, and you remember when we've talked in the past, the only true guidance on moving levels to levels is from the CDC, which is that 14 days of 5% or less positive case rate. And very many people believe that we will never reach that, and most gating criteria that I see has that as a part of it, and that's going to make it very difficult for us to ever get back into in-person instruction. Rather, the Department of Health Services also has guidance, which we have adopted. We adopted that this summer. It's on our website, and it has guidance on how we would move from level to level going down. I think it's very safe to say that it's much harder to go up a level, which is what we're trying to do right now, than it's going to be to go down a level. And so we have within that DHS guidance at the classroom level, at the individual school level, and at the school district level, what the types of criteria are. They are not specific numbers, certainly, but they do give us the ability to interpret them along with the internal and external factors that we talked about last month that we'll talk about each month, which are student and staff absences, cases, and quarantines, our substitute fill rates and overall staffing capacity, and then our trajectory increases or decreases in Waukesha County. So What we have on this particular picture, and many of you monitor the Waukesha County dashboard like we do, that was the picture in the far back of what it was on September, I believe it was, whatever our September meeting date was. It might have been the 16th, I believe, because we had Labor Day, and what our cases look like then. That is a picture from today. So obviously we have more active cases in Waukesha County. The case count has went up. The deaths have went up slightly. The percentage of positive tests over the last 7 days from 9% roughly to almost 11%, and a little dip in the cases requiring hospitalization. In this one, we look at the cases by municipality, and I believe it was 102 in September, and right now it is 269. We also look at the cases by school district, and at that time we had 15 within the Waukesha School District boundaries. Today we have 46 within the Waukesha School District boundaries, but as Dr. Cook pointed out in the HR committee, we have 17 within the Waukesha School District, so 29 of those do not belong to the Waukesha School District. They would belong to homeschoolers or private school students. We also then look and compare the data trends, and so when we look at those charts, which may be a little bit hard for you to see, you can see that when we look at the trend for 14 days, positive trend line, we were relatively flat in September, and now we are on a slight decrease, the difference being there are more cases, and so those numbers on those charts are higher. We're actually at about the same point we were in September, just that the numbers are getting a bit higher. And the other bottom left quadrant you can see is the hospital usage over the past 14 days. You can see we were on a decrease, now we're more of a level trend. So there is some increased use of hospital, and that certainly is something to note. When we look at the student data and compare that from September to today, what we see is that we are obviously increasing in our numbers of quarantines, but you can see the very small difference in the number of isolations, which are the number of cases within the school district of Waukesha. And from a staff perspective, it's very much a wash from this quarantines from then to now, and we actually see a slight decrease in the amount of cases from September until now within the teaching staff and staff overall. We then have continued to look at absences and fill rates. So this chart shows you what teacher absences looked like. The red is in 2019-20, and the blue is in this current school year. So you can see they're relatively consistent for the most part in terms of teacher absence rates from year to year. When we look at what we're unfilling, that looks a little bit different. And so those numbers are broken down by fives. So you can see last year there were times where we weren't necessarily filling all of our opportunities either. This year we have a few more of those opportunities where we're not filling them necessarily on a daily basis. When we look at special education assistants, this is again absences. I would say relatively similar. Again, those lines follow each other, quite similar from last year to this year. And when we look at the ones that are unfilled, again, you can see we have a little bit more unfilling. Like for example, today, last year we would have filled 5. Today we would have not filled roughly 8 or 9. So subtly different. And then we look at the health room and clerical absences. Again, earlier in the year, a little bit more, but now seems to be leveling out for the most part, very similar to last year. And when we look at what we have unfilled, again, not significantly different. It was earlier in the year, getting a little bit better as we move on and get closer to where we find ourselves today. So with all that being said, what we think is that what's most important is getting kids back to school more consistently. We think it's very important to consistently talk about being vigilant with our mitigation strategies, not only in school, but at home and in the community. You know, we can't do this certainly by ourselves, and so we want to continue to push that message out. I think it's very possible that we are going to live with COVID-19 for 12 to 18 months going forward. And I think it's important that we start to take steps in learning how to live with it, and figuring out how we continue to have school in that environment. And I think, the other thing that we're proud of is that with the live streaming, which we have some very robust professional development lined up from Ms. Landish and Mr. Schloman's departments working together for people to feel comfortable with it. And we also think live streaming is going to raise the accountability level of the virtual piece at home, because kids need to be engaged and they need to be active, and that's going to help kids and that's going to help parents as well. And we like the opportunity that it gives us to allow a choice. And certainly, I think there are, as we pointed out earlier, there's a number of challenges that the longer kids stay out of school have the opportunity to worsen. And certainly that's from an academic perspective, but also from a social and emotional perspective. And I don't know that we're ever going to find the exact perfect time of when to transition into this next level either. As I said earlier, I think it's going to be much easier once we get back into a more regular attendance pattern to back things down if we needed than it is to elevate them up. So overall, we believe we're ready, and that's the reason that administratively we made the recommendation that we made to move forward. And we think we can be successful in that model, and we think that it is the right way to approach with the calendar the way that it is, moving forward as we approach that collective goal of getting to 5 days face-to-face. So what I wanted to do there is try to paint for you a picture of kind of how we got there, the data that we monitor, and how we are trying to think systemically toward getting back to the ultimate goal. So with that, I'll pause and certainly answer any questions as best that I can for you.
Ms. Diane?
I want to use a strategy that I learned about at a recent SWSA school board meeting. For just school board members. It wasn't the one with administrators involved. We met with a gentleman from the Donovan Group named Jerry Gallagher, and his whole approach was, when you have an important decision to make, and this is probably one of the most important ones that we'll ever have to make, we should really focus on what we agree on before we start discussing, rather than being, right away getting at each other with different perspectives. So I'd like to begin by listing 6 statements that I have designed that I think are statements that we can all agree on. And what I'd like to is, try to look for your body language just for affirmation to those 6 statements as I go through the process. The first one is, we all want to get back to full face-to-face learning opportunities as soon as it's safely possible to do that. Does that sound like something that we can all, agree on, that that's one of the things that we want to try to do? Second thing, that the School District of Waukesha is data-driven, and I appreciate your presentation, which leads right into that. Our tech team has designed tools to allow us to watch the number of positive cases among students and staff and the related quarantines by school to allow us to see a measure of how the pandemic is affecting all of our day-to-day operations. So I think we can all agree that, we are data-driven. Okay? Third thing, the county dashboard is also an effective measure of the number of positive cases. And I think we have to be looking at the county as well as our own school specifics. And it currently is showing a 7-day average of cases per day of 161, which compares to 84.1 when we made our decision to use hybrid model in August. So almost double the number of cases in the county. Third thing, as we look at the state, like opening up the next perspective, we're seeing 2,764.6 as the state's daily average number of cases compared to 760 in August before colleges reopened. Wisconsin is now featured in the national news as a hot zone as hospitalizations increase, even prompting the opening of the field hospital that was built at the State Fair Park for overflow beyond hospital capacity. I think we can agree that the reality of the pandemic is a concern in Wisconsin today that it wasn't 2 months ago when we started making our decisions about coming back to school. And the spread of cases in our state is growing dramatically. Agreed? At this point, after being 6 weeks into the school year, we should be assessing the effectiveness of our mitigation procedures. And as stated, I think we can all agree that wearing face coverings has been successful, washing hands, sanitizing, and maintaining social distancing have been effective in slowing the spread in our student bodies. And we have to thank the committee that designed these plans and put that whole mitigation procedure in place. And number 6, I think we can all agree that the school district of Waukesha is concerned about social emotional learning. And we have to acknowledge that fear and anxiety are high right now. As we heard from our speakers, and we've received many, many, many communications over the last few days. As you heard at Teaching and Learning, when the West student came forward, she was afraid about the effects of the proposed reopening plan when she first heard about it, a couple weeks ago. And she started a petition that Friday afternoon to see if 50 others would agree with her. She reported that she has 1,300 signatures.
Are you getting to a question, Diane?
I'm just this statement that I think right now, from what they've been telling us, fear and anxiety are examples of social emotional levels, and they're very, very high. We've heard so much about it. We've seen it. We've heard the level of signatures on petitions. I think it's something that we have to agree is a very real concern right now among the staff and among the students. So, with that consensus, how is the hybrid model working? We have not formally done a survey to determine if the virtual instruction is more effective than it was last spring. But from the feedback we've gotten, that from the communication outpouring, I believe that many, many have said that they feel it has been working. One communication I thought was particularly insightful. The hybrid model is indeed a variation on what we learned about when Jody Landish was my principal at North High School, called blended classroom. It was an approach that we talked about as we were learning about the rollout of one-to-one technology as a best practice. And really what we're looking at right now is hybrid is that best practice of having personalized learning with face-to-face on certain days. So to quote a West English teacher.
Are you going to be asking Dr. Siebert a question?
Yes.
Eventually, Diane?
Our
here?
students regularly are asking, and this is from a West teacher's perspective, if the current model is working, why should we change it? And if Wisconsin and Waukesha County are seeing cases rise, why make a change now that puts our students, staff, their families, and the Waukesha community at greater risk?
Sure. So the current model is working for some, and I would say it's not working for others. Overall, I think we need to keep it in the arsenal. I think we are going to potentially want to use it again at some point. And I think when you blend live streaming with the hybrid model, it probably strengthens it to an even better level. So that would be my response to that. In terms of the second question, I can't argue with that. Wisconsin is a hot spot, and there are a number of cases. What we've tried to look at is what we are doing within our schools, and the fact that while we have had limited transmission and very minimal transmission within the schools, for the most part, we are not super spreaders, or we are not spreading it in the schools currently. So we believe we can space kids out by using the entire building at lunchtime when they aren't wearing masks. And when we are in the classrooms, we certainly are not going to have, we will have a significant chunk of our population select the live streaming option. So we won't have 100% of the kids in a middle school or a high school. So to that extent, we will also be able to create better spacing within classrooms. We would, based on previous surveys, expect probably somewhere around 70 to 80% of kids would choose to come back. That will remain to be seen.
Other questions? Mr. Montiel?
Thank you, President Como. Dr. Siebert, I appreciate the presentation. In my view, it's math. Math is 2 + 2 has always been 4. So I appreciate that, the trending, everything else. My question to you, and I think I know the answer, but I'd like to hear, is the school district administration looking at the infection rate countywide for everybody, also for the infection rate for the children from the age of 0 to 18 who live within the boundaries of the school district of Waukesha, and then taking it down a notch further and looking at the infection rate for our students who attend the school district of Waukesha? Is that something you guys are looking at?
Yes.
Okay. I looked at that as well. Infection rate, by definition, is how many people are in that population and how many are infected. To get the percentage, you flip it. You say if there's, in Waukesha County, there's 1,487 cases. You divide that by the census data as of 2019, the projections of 404,198 people. So the infection rate for the county, everybody in the county, is 0.3678%. If you break that down to within the school-age children who live within the boundaries of the school district of Waukesha, there's 46 cases. These are numbers as of today, of 21,172 school-age children who live within the boundaries of the school district of Waukesha. That's an infection rate of 0.217%. And then if we break it down further, as you talked about the school district administration is looking at, how many student active cases do we have today? As of today, as you mentioned in your presentation, there's 17 cases. There's approximately 12,500 students within in our school district. So you take 17 divided by 12,500, that's an infection rate of 0.136. So if you look at the county, it's 0.3678%. If you look at the students who live within the boundaries, it's 0.217. If you look at our actual student population as of today, it's 0.136%. So what I'm trying to ask in a very numerical way is the student population in our schools making it worse for the greater population in our county? Because if I look at the infection rate, which is significantly lower than the people in the county, I think one could reasonably conclude that they're not. And the conclusion is, or the question that it begs is why? And I think it goes back to what you have done and your team has done and the board has recommended are the mitigation measures. So common sense, at least in my opinion, would say the infection rate among our student population is, I won't say dramatically less, but it's about half because of the mitigation efforts. So as you mentioned, I don't think the numbers support that students in our school district are super spreaders. They're not causing an outbreak.
Do you have another question, Corey?
Yeah, would you agree?
I would agree.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry for the long question, but thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Dietz?
Dr. Siebert, have you and your team thought about homes and or student situations where they will have technical issues and how that could be addressed? That's one question, then I have a follow-up with that.
Sure. So yes, we have Mr. Dietz. So I mean, we have the benefit of every child having an iPad, which first and foremost is tremendous. But then in terms of access, we have invested in additional hotspots that we can provide to families should they have access issues.
So they could request those?
Yes. That's working through Mr. Schloman's department.
And that information has been communicated to parents? Or will be?
Not sure. Through the school social workers.
Why don't you say that again, please?
Our student services departments at our schools are working with families on that.
So any technical issues, they could contact someone, Mr. Schloman or his
Well, actually, I
office?
believe, was it Mr. Pinion that was working on that, Dr. Cook?
Yeah, within the last couple of weeks, we've ordered and purchased about 60 additional hotspots to address kids who did not have access, the kids that we knew of that didn't have access. Knowing that we are going back into this one-day virtual, 4 days of face-to-face instruction, we'll continue to monitor that. Our social workers are the lead point of contact at the schools right now. People can also reach out to Steve if there's an issue, and Luke has helped facilitate this, yes.
Is there a way to record those lessons that are live streamed? Because I heard that brought up as well. Does anyone know an answer to that?
Do you want to take that, Dr. Cook? We have not talked about recording them.
We haven't talked about recording it. We are, as we navigate this, we are working through the dynamic where the family has selected not to have their child videoed during class. And so the live streaming does, we have a consent out there, a passive consent out there that it's been shared with families, but the actual recording of the lesson then would change the dynamic of the live stream. So, we are trying to be sensitive to the families who don't want their kids recorded in the classroom setting.
And then my second question, I heard it loud and clear tonight, and I've heard it loud and clear for the last few weeks. That staff feel left out in decision-making or lack of input. Have you thought about that? Has that been addressed, or will that be addressed in the near future?
I have thought about it, and it certainly will be addressed. One of the reasons that it wasn't a priority was based on knowing, based on 2 summer surveys, as well as additional feedback, where the gap was between what our parents wanted and what our staff preferred. And so, while I did work with the EAW to inform them of where we were going to go, I was clear that I didn't ask for the input because I was clear on the perspective. But I also said we would do what we can do to make them feel supported, to have the technology and the professional development that they need. And we will certainly work to build that back, if you will. And I certainly want to be, I don't want the staff to feel like that. I want them to feel included. I want to be an inclusive leader. However, I do think there are times when we have to make decisions that are in the best interest of the system that maybe not necessarily everybody will agree to.
And I think, too, with their workload, the amount of additional responsibilities and duties that have been added, maybe administratively, some things could be taken off their plate instead of continuing to add more at a time.
That is a discussion that we are having in the cabinet, and actually Dr. Cook brought it up on Tuesday, and we'll be revisiting again tomorrow. Thank you for the questions.
Yep.
Other questions? Yes, Bill.
Yeah, this is a slightly different angle, and Dr. Siebert, and you know that I have had issues with this a couple weeks ago. It's not so much about, is this a good time for COVID and the percentages and all the numbers and all that stuff. It's the method that was used to get to tomorrow or next week. There's some things that just really didn't sit well with me. One was I was approached about maybe doing what I thought was a granular thing if we had 1 or 2 schools that we wanted to do a little bit of testing in, that was okay to do that, but if you're going to do something big, it'd be nice if you included the board. And I considered this move far more than granular. It's a pretty big move, yet it was just dropped on us. So I had an issue with that, and Jim knows that. Another point that bothered me back in July or August when we discussed the plans that we were putting into place, we pretty much told the parents that they'd be safe in this plan until the next semester. This is violated. I remember word granular again is on here. I'll skip that. I covered that. Another point, after hearing the voices of those pushing us to go to more than a 2-day hybrid, why not listen to the voices of those that are happy with the current hybrid? Until recently, and you've sure heard about it in the last week or so, they like what they've got, working. Should we be changing it? And I'm not saying ever, I'm saying now. Should we change it now? That's the question there. We hear about the percentages that are doing quite well in Waukesha. The question will be, will that be sustained when all of a sudden we throw a whole bunch of more kids back into the 4-day hybrid? There was a mention in Jim's letter about the Board of Education has allowed the administration team to look for ways to reopen. I disagree with that. I was never contacted. I don't know if all of you were or not, but this just happened. And we talked about, there is a policy that talks about administration is granted authority to take appropriate action as required, and this is for a pandemic, but it talks about things that are much less of a nature than bringing the secondary schools from a 2-day to a 4-day program. So again, I've been more concerned with the way this was done and the basic leaving the teachers out of it, leaving the student out of it, and leaving the board out of it until it's on the email going out. And that troubled me. We talked about it, but it still troubles me.
Jim, you want to speak to any of that?
Like when we did talk, I appreciated your perspective. Yeah, absolutely. And Mr. Como and I did talk about granular versus full 5-day face-to-face, and the thought was anything less than full day face-to-face would be considered granular. I respect your opinion, though, that it's a significant move. Yes, and I respect that.
Questions? Okay. Anything else, Jim, that
Got
you?
questions here.
Oh, Kurt?
You know, I don't think it's possible for a situation like this. I really, in my mind, feel that it's a very difficult decision, and I felt that all along, all the way through this for the last 5, 6 weeks. Even before Dr. Siebert made this decision, I mean, we had emails going back and forth, and I was kind of leaning towards trying to do a granular reopening too, about the time when it was announced. And at the same time also, I've kind of made the position when I deal with all the complainers or all the people, I said, I'm going to put my faith in the administration to make the right decision, because I believe they are going to have the best information in front of them and be able to make the right decision, at least on an interim basis. And I intend to stick to that. That doesn't mean I agree with the decision, doesn't mean I disagree with the decision. It means I'm uncertain about it. And I'm uncertain about it in a number of ways. So I'm not out to change the decision. I'm not out to say the decision is wrong. I'm not out to question that group of people or that group of people. What I'm out is to answer a few questions, and that's what we're about, right? Because Joe's going to cut me off and ask me when am I going to...
I was going to ask you, are you going to ask a question? Yes.
So, I think there has been some things missed, and I'm not trying to change the decision, Dr. Siebert. I'm going to support you. But in terms of what's happened over the last couple of weeks, it's different than when the decision made, and we were told when it was made we're going to be watching this, and dynamically things change rapidly, which means that we may change the decision, which I think is fair enough. And we did have dynamically a lot of stuff change rapidly since the time when the decision was announced to today. The growth rate has been quite high. Would you agree, Dr. Siebert?
Yes.
I have to ask a question now, then otherwise Joe's going to cut me off.
That was a question.
Yes.
Next question.
And there is a next question. And you would also agree that there's a number of parents and students and staff that are very happy with the hybrid model.
Yeah, I would.
And you would also agree that we're well prepared to go back to the hybrid model if we deem that that's going to be necessary. Right?
Certainly.
And we're confident that it'll be successful, and it's an a quality educational model.
It certainly helped us get the year started, and it does have some positives, absolutely.
Well, I think some positives is the problem. I think it has, for those people that are in it, I mean, they're pretty...
No, they're full positives.
They're pretty, that group of parents, and it seems like a fairly large group of parents and teachers, they feel like they've done a great job in accepting the hybrid and launching hybrid. So the challenge we have here is when people say it's a win-win, it's not a win-win. Would you agree it's not a win-win for everybody in the district?
I don't know that anything we could do in this environment would be a win-win for everybody.
So that troubles me when people try to tell us, oh, everybody's going to win in this. It's not. Some people are going to feel like winners. Some people aren't going to feel like winners. That's parents, students, and staff. And I think what concerns me going forward is, and I haven't been pushing for this in the past, is the looseness in which this whole thing is designed. I think we should have criteria defined with something set out in the future where it's like it doesn't happen tomorrow. But you talked about in your presentation, and by the way, it's an excellent presentation. I appreciate facts. I appreciate the straight facts. You didn't try to filter to make it look good. You were straight all the way through, and I appreciate that. But one of the things you said in your presentation is, we can't do this by ourselves. We need people to take the precautions in their homes and their social practices and everything. And it'd be best for the community if we were able to get this COVID rate down. It's not good for the community for us to de-emphasize COVID.
Correct.
As a board, we're making a huge mistake when we try to come up with numbers that make it sound like it's something. Okay. I don't think this district has that position. I know our teachers don't, or nor do any of our students. So I think in order for us to feel comfortable going forward, that we need to see something like the gating criteria, like this gating, it doesn't have to be this gating criteria, that says, December 1st, if we're not here, then we need to take a step back if we're not here. So that people don't feel like we're going into a blind alley with there's no light at the end of the tunnel, and if there is a light, it might be a train. That's how some people are feeling right now. And I think it's only fair to challenge the community, as I've said all along.
Is there another question, Kurt?
I am asking a question.
Okay.
That we have grading criteria, and I'm wondering why isn't that part of the proposal?
Good question. I have yet to find gating criteria that I think, personally, would be beneficial to us. I think it would create more in and out, more pivoting, as we heard some people talk about tonight, and more ups and downs for kids, teachers, families. If that's something that the board collectively would like, I would be more than happy to try and put together a group that could work on something like that. I've just always been a believer that when we monitor internal and external factors like I talked about, and we monitor our cases within the district as well as those other pieces, that will become clear to us when indeed something isn't working and we need to step it down a level. I think, like I said earlier, I think it's harder to take the step up.
Well, I guess my concern with that is, we took the step up, it seems, against the data, right? We're swimming against the stream that's coming at us, and we take that step up. And for those people that see that you're taking a step up against the stream, they wonder how hard does the stream have to flow before we. And I think if this data, this gating, I'm not saying this is the gating criteria we used. Tell me, if this was the gating criteria that the county recommended for the school districts in Waukesha County, would you have a problem with it following the county's recommendations?
I think it would be beneficial if we had guidance from the county.
Well, I want you to know I've contacted the county, and I've explained to county supervisors that I don't think it's acceptable that the county's not providing guidance to school districts with great gating criteria. Doesn't mean we can't modify it or change it to our own satisfaction, but without gating criteria, it puts all of us in a tough situation. Puts you in a tough situation, puts me in a tough situation. We start making up numbers that either makes COVID look bad or COVID look good, and everybody is at odds against each other. So I think either the county comes up with gating criteria or we come up with gating criteria, and we pick a time when that gating criteria will become effective. I don't think it can become effective tomorrow. I don't think it can become effective. I think we need to give it a few weeks with whatever change we're putting in. But if the community can't reduce the COVID infection rates, and they continue to be at this high level, and it's affecting our ability to run our schools and our staff and all the stress that's on there, we need to make it clear that there's targets that we have to have met as a community for us to expect us to be successful going forward. We're just not doing that. And I think, and what I'm asking you is, you say that if the board would ask for that, how does the board ask for that?
I think you're asking for it right now.
It's something for us to consider, and I think that's part of the, when you talk about the next board meeting, November board meeting, I think the gating criteria should be on the table for us to consider. You guys can work on, and maybe the county will come up with something in the meantime. We're supposed to be working with the county. We should be encouraging the criteria.
Yeah, we're really not agendized to talk on that now, but I think Jim has been listening to all of our questions and comments, so
Well,
he's
we're
going to take that.
agendized to discuss. I don't think we can restrict the
Can't take
discussion.
it. We can't take action on gating right now.
Yeah, we can't take action.
Yes.
I'm just saying
Yep.
that as part of the suggestion that he'd come back in November for us to maybe take some sort of action, that I would like to have gating criteria on the table.
Other questions? Amanda, you had raised your hand before?
I did, but Mr. O'Brien basically asked what I was asking, was going to ask. In conversations with some families, they're asking, where I see and I know that we have criteria listed on our website, but I think people are looking for numbers because we keep saying we're looking at the numbers. Well, they want to know what numbers we're looking at, what the source that they're coming from. So the question has been asked. Just because the county hasn't provided it, why can't we as a district look up? So I understand what's agendized and what's not. So that would be my question. You don't have to answer me at this point. You know how I feel, I guess, now.
Yes.
And then, if I may, really quickly, going back to what Mr. Baumgart had said about the understanding of the duration, the questions being asked of us, why now? Why are we changing it now? When I voted in August, my understanding was we'd go the full length of the semester as well. But after having conversations with some of our administrators, I understand where you're coming from on that one. And then, I got to read my chicken scratch here really fast. Also, my understanding, and I've asked this of you and I think some other of the board members, when we voted in August, I was under the understanding that we had given administration the ability to slide forward and back. Now, I guess we didn't specify to you how big forward or back. Is that the understanding that you were under based off of the vote in August? You and the administration,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, that was essentially the directive we gave.
I was just making
Yep.
sure that's my understanding was the same as, like I said, we didn't give you specifics on how far you could step forward or how far you could step back, but I just want to make sure that I was correct in my understanding there. That's what I needed. Thank you.
Dan?
My question has to do with the equity of starting on October 19th when the live streaming won't be available till November 1. We're putting several families that will want to go virtual on the 19th. They're not going to have the benefit of having our staff be prepared to put that methodology into effect. Is that fair to them to force them into that virtual transition until we're ready to be able to offer it?
That's a fair question, Mrs. Voigt. So what we can do between the 19th and November 2nd is continue to use Blackboard the way that we have been using it on the off days within the hybrid. So kids will have a very similar experience to what they're having now. And then we will build into the live streaming because we wanted to give the teachers a little bit more time to get proficient. Some of them are very proficient already, but others are going to need a little more time to perfect it. So we think we can, for the equivalent of, I believe it's 5.5 days, provide some really solid asynchronous technological experiences for the kids that like to stay home.
Other questions? Patrick? Any questions?
No, I don't really have any questions. I just want to say that I have confidence that the administration has worked through this, and I have the utmost confidence that they can achieve what they're going towards.
Okay. Anyone else? Yeah, Mr. Dietz.
Have parents been asked to make a commitment to go 4 days face-to-face or go virtual?
Letter went out, I believe.
Or is there a combination
yesterday?
of both, or where does that stand?
Yeah, we have a letter that went out that was crafted by Rachel Herman and working with the principals. And what we're asking for teacher planning purposes is for parents to tell us if they would like to do this for a quarter, or they can do it for as little as a month, and we'll take a new survey each month, but also with the caveat that we will work with people, and we realize situations will come up or minds will change, or certain things in a family might be dynamic and change, and so we'll work with those cases individually.
So there is built-in flexibility for families.
Correct.
Within the model that we're moving into. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, Kurt?
So, we do have educators that are at significant health risk, or they have someone in their family that's at significant health risk. And I'm wondering, are we intending to allow educators to educate virtually? In other words, their kids can come to the classroom and sit in the classroom, but can the educator teach from their home?
We have not discussed that. No.
Well, how do you protect that educator and make that educator feel comfortable? I mean, we're willing to let kids feel comfortable by being virtual. We should be willing to let teachers feel comfortable by live streaming into the classroom.
Well,
So I think that should be a consideration for this launch, because it seems like we're just telling the teachers, your health problems are your health problems, or your family problems are your family problems. You're an essential employee, which I don't really feel that that's, I think that's part of the problem here. So if we're going to give this virtual option for the families, why aren't we considering a virtual option for the educators as well?
Well, I think there'd be an expense there that would be different than what we had thought of for one factor, but that's certainly not what would drive anything. What we are trying to do is consistently remind teachers that you wear your mask, you wear your shield, and you stay 6 feet in front of the room from the students. And so if we can adhere to those practices, we should be able to continue to have the success that we've had to date. I'd allow Dr. Cook if he had any comments on that.
No, and we are finding, again, we had the conversation earlier about where is the spread happening, and what we're learning is, yes, we have to quarantine a lot, but we're finding that the spread is generally happening outside of school. Getting to the earlier comment about what can we do to prevent that, and that's that community approach. Because we have found that parents who have tested positive have knowingly then sent their kids to school after that positive test, and then their kid has been a couple days later sick, and then that's impacted a class. So having that cooperation from the whole community will keep everybody safer. It will keep our teachers and our students in the classroom, but we do need to partner on that.
Yes, Kurt?
And another, and again, we're trying to make this as safe as possible for all parties involved. So another consideration would be making sure that the county notifies us of the need to, who needs to be in a quarantine relative to someone testing positive in a family that's in the district. Is there a way of doing that?
I think that, Dr. Cook.
We have had a lot of cooperation from the county through that contact tracing process. So we have been notified. The issue that we run into is the delay in testing. And that's is to some degree the frustration that our parents are experiencing with when it comes down to quarantine. Somebody may go out sick. They're not necessarily being reported as a possible test or possible positive. They're getting tested, the test results come back 3, 4, 5, 7 days later. And then that triggers that quarantine process then that you as board members hear about. So we do get notified from the county. They come in regularly. We hear about transportation providers. We hear about our bus company. We do get that, but there's a delay from when the test happened to when the notification comes out. The county, too, is extremely busy with this. We hear that regularly, that there is a delay on their part to contact trace because of the volume that Waukesha County is experiencing right now.
Then keep asking questions if it's okay. And I will ask questions.
All
I
right.
won't make statements.
I'm going to have a question here, too. So I'm going to take a turn soon.
Yeah. Relative to, and we talked about this in HR a little bit, we had a couple instances where we were very close to shutting down schools, right? One case was an elementary, one case was a secondary school, we'll call it. And we talked about the fact that the staff was able to keep it going, but it was difficult. I think we also need to make parents aware if these type of situations arise going forward, we will be having to close schools, individual schools. I think that has to be part of the communication plan to parents as we move into this program. And I think we have to be clear, we came close to closing at least 2, maybe 3 schools just in the last 5 weeks.
No, I would agree with you, Mr. O'Brien. We actually, Dr. Cook authored a letter that we sent out in late September that kind of spoke to exactly that we have been fortunate to not close schools. And he talked about it in HR today. It's close to 80, if I remember your number, districts that have had to close schools. So we can, Mrs. Voigt has talked about that as well. We need to continue to make that front of mind for people so that they understand that, yeah, that will, if we can't keep, Dr. Cook has said it ever since the summer, if we can't keep our staff healthy, we can't have school. And if we can't keep kids healthy, well, we can't have school. So we certainly will do that.
And then I think the other thing we talked about in HR is the need to seek ways of providing some sort of testing that the school district, rapid testing that would help the school district and help our community, county assistance or whatever, relative to these situations to take some of the stress off. You know, if we can go from in 7 days, someone knowing, yeah, I'm really not positive, I really should be safe.
Dr. Cook had some comments on that in the HR meeting, and we can continue to dialogue on that within the district.
So as we move forward, you know, I'm trying not to question the administrative decision because it's a tough one. It's not an easy one to make, and I understand that. But I think part of any decision, just like the hybrid before us, or whether we would have done anything else, is you keep looking for ways to make it better, make it safer, make it better. I know the decision will not be popular tomorrow morning. It's probably not popular tonight with some people. But we should always be able to have people agree that we should always be trying to make things better. Would you agree?
Totally agree. Yes.
And as a board, I would like us to get a little bit better at coming together on some of these things. I don't think it helps anyone for the board to be, you know, I have to say I miss Pat Madden. She usually brought us together by about 3 or 4 votes. You know, we need to come together. We can't keep questioning whether COVID is a serious problem because so much of our staff believes it's a serious problem, so much of our community and so much of our country. And we need to treat it as a serious problem because by acting like we don't think it's a serious problem, I'm not saying the district's doing that, it sends the impression that people can do what they want.
Corey? Mr. Coleman, I'll make this quick. A question I've gotten time and time again, and because I get those a lot, I've reached out to you and you had Dr. Cook respond to it, is of the students that were quarantined, how many of those turned positive? And I think, after the quarantine, they had a positive test. And as of October 8th, Dr. Cook let us know that there were 768 total students quarantined. And of those 768, there was 55 students who tested positive. That was, I don't know, about a week ago, not even. Are those numbers roughly the same today? I don't know if you have up to date.
To refer to Dr. Cook.
Yeah, we did a presentation at HR, and the numbers today, we have had a total of 71 students this school year test positive for COVID. We have quarantined 993 students. And then we have that 17 students who are isolated right now, tested positive, and then 352 who are on quarantine. And then when we also talked at HR, we didn't make the mention that, you know, school districts have been closing. When we read the news, I mean, school districts have been closing with 2 cases in a school. And we do have Waukesha County schools that have decided to go virtual, you know, with a handful of students who are quarantined and a couple of cases in the school. So we understand that there have been a lot of students who have been quarantined, but administratively we believe that those quarantines have allowed us to keep our doors open and not have to make that other decision.
I'm sorry, just so I'm clear, I think you were clear, but maybe I'm misunderstanding it. So of the students that have been quarantined, 768 as of October 8th, is it 55 of those 768 Or is it 55?
Those are separate numbers. 55, if you were to look at it like 55 positive cases triggered 760 quarantines. Although some of those cases, most of those cases, those positives were not transmitted in the school building. Those kids came to school positive, and then that triggered the quarantine based off of how DHS has guided us to quarantine.
Okay. Do we have a data? That's my last question, because that's what I was getting to, but do we have a number of the total students quarantined, of those have subsequently tested positive during the quarantine?
We
put you in the spot, but can we find that out?
If I may, we are working with the county right now. We are supposed to be given outbreak notice if we have 2 or more cases in a school, and then that would be triggered. That would be the link that you're referring to. We have not been given those notices in writing. We have heard them verbally that one kid, I was the one who came to school sick, you were quarantined, and then you tested positive. Those are the situations that they're looking for. We haven't been given that notification in writing. We are of the belief that we've had a few situations like that, but to actually put a number on it would not be possible right now.
Okay, thank you.
And then also to draw that link back to the school building would be very difficult as well. Again, there's a general activity in the community where we're seeing the community spread. You pointed that out in your earlier numbers. That is then having the impact on the school. We believe that we're doing a pretty good job of controlling things in the school. It's what's happening outside of the school then that is having the impact on the school.
Right. Thank you.
Karen?
Thank you. Out of those 55 kids, students, do they come to school showing symptoms? I mean, are they, could they just be carriers and not having any symptoms, or they are tested because they do have fevers?
Fever has manifested, it manifested more at the beginning of the school year. We saw more fevers in the screening at the beginning of the year than we have throughout the school year. So the fever hasn't been the piece. What we're experiencing in school is a child arrives in the morning, and as we've experienced with other things, they don't feel well. They start to not feel well at school during the day. They get sent to the isolation room. They're sent home. Parents get a test, and the test comes back positive. Or there was a situation where mom or dad tested positive, and then the kids tested positive on top of it, possibly through a family type gathering or a sporting event, something like that. And then the kids then trigger a quarantine in the school. So temperature screening has caught things earlier. They haven't caught it as much lately. We continue to do them because we believe it's still important to do.
So when the kids are coming to school, and I know because my son, he is tested, or
Yep.
his temperature is checked, you're not catching them then. They're coming into the school and they're developing the symptoms later, not feeling so good, and then you tell the parents, go get tested while you keep the student here?
No, we send the student home immediately.
And then they all go get tested?
And then sometimes they do. Sometimes they refuse a test. We have been directed from time to time by the county to assume positive and then treat it as a positive test and look at the quarantine because the child doesn't want to get tested. The parent won't get the child tested. We've had those situations play out too this year. The test is just the thing that confirms it. But we still, if you take COVID out of the way, for as long as the school district has been open, we've sent sick kids home to their parents. And so we also experience that too. Sue and I have talked on a number of occasions when she was working at Horning, you get the kids coming down that were sick anyway. As we get into the flu season, as we get into the winter, we'll probably have to make that call to send kids home more and more. COVID is just one more thing that we have to account for this year.
Thank you.
Okay, Kurt.
Yeah,
Question?
I just want us to be clear with ourselves, and I'm going to ask Mr. Cook this question. One of the challenges we have in answering some of these questions is HIPAA. We can send a child, we can know as a district that we have a positive child. Almost nobody else but us can know that, other than his immediate family member and the county. At the same time, we don't get information from the county about all the other people who may be infected in that family or as a result of that family. We don't get that information because HIPAA, well, first of all, I don't think we'd want it. It's not part of what we do, but I think HIPAA would be
would be restrictive in that matter. Would you agree with that, Mr. Cook?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cases that exist in the community that we don't get notified of, and they may have a connection to the school. And those are the situations where the parents have the known test, the known positive, and then they send their child to school. If we had notification from the county that the child should be quarantined, we wouldn't let them come through the door, but we don't get that notification all the time.
Yeah, so when we talk about, and I don't think our kids have been spreaders. I don't think there's very many cases, but I wouldn't know. None of us know, because we don't get that information from the county.
Correct.
It could have happened. It may have happened among the 42 kids that are out today across the county, or across our school district boundaries. There may have been spreads relative to those children, or within that family, or the extended family. When you look at what happened at the White House with 28 cases of one single event, and maybe one person had it, we don't know. We can't know as a district this information. So these questions we can't really answer them.
Sure. I mean, we can only give the data on the numbers that have been reported. To Ms. Reinachek's question earlier, about, kids coming in and the asymptomatic carriers, we would never catch the asymptomatic carrier of this, which is why we have the other strategies in place where there's mask wearing, there's extra hand washing. We're monitoring for other symptoms, perhaps besides just the fever. But yeah, I mean, we could be walking around, and any number of us in the room could potentially have it. And if we're not going to display symptoms, nobody will know that we have it. Correct.
Well, Mr. Siebert and Board President Como, again, this is getting down to, let's not talk about what we don't know. Because the reality is, we can't say for certain how much spreading is going on in the community as a result of whatever we're seeing in our schools. They're undisclosable to us.
All right. I appreciate the discussion, appreciate the questions, I appreciate your answers, Dr. Siebert, and everybody else who contribute to those answers. I want to just take a moment and bring us back to the 50,000-foot level. Every Board of Education, basically their primary responsibility is to pass policy and to hold the administration accountable and to hire the superintendent, which we've done. And thank you for accepting our offer. And I'm not going to do a litany of everything that we do, but main thing is we develop policy, okay? And that policy then is interpreted and implemented by administration. And we do that not just for this situation, we do that literally for everything that we do in this district. We set policy for everything, okay? And that's our responsibility. You should ask the question, well, why do we do that? And that's to help districts to run efficiently. Districts get the input of the constituents who we represent. We pass the policies to help our community move forward in a direction that we feel is best, which is based upon the input of our constituents. And actually, sometimes I'll get an email or someone will talk to me and say, I don't know if it's worth writing you. Well, we read our emails, thousands of them. We talk to people. I return calls. We all return calls. Okay, so that's our job, is to represent our constituents. And so with every policy that we put forth, the administration interprets and puts into practice. And you've done so in this case. And when administration has some questions or needs some clarification, administration should come back to the board and ask us for that. And Dr. Siebert, is that a fair, just real summary of how administration and the board works together?
Sure, yes.
At the highest level.
Yes.
And, your team has been charged to tackle probably the largest issue that has ever been faced in this district and nationwide by schools. And, could you perhaps talk a little bit about how your team tackles this from a day-to-day perspective and how you've risen to this challenge? How have you risen to this challenge is essentially you being administration and the district as a whole.
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, in a nutshell, it's essentially all that we do, unfortunately, in one way, because we don't, we talk about it in cabinet, we talk about it, Dr. Cook and I constantly, we don't talk enough about teaching and learning right now. PD is constantly hiring. We're constantly talking about COVID spending and watching that. And so it's just constant in terms of the work that we do, but it is the work that we have, and it's the most important thing that we have to do right now. So, I mean, I can't say that necessarily more than it's about all that we do in terms of, the communication, the responding to stakeholders, the listening, the planning, the ongoing monitoring of data, the ongoing monitoring of the mitigation efforts. It's just a constant right now.
So it's constant for your team, all parts of the team, all parts of the district. And it is for us too. And I just want to point that out, coming back to, we're all in this together. I appreciate the discussion. We're going to continue to move forward on this. We need to be as flexible as we possibly can be. And I think we have that structure built right now. And there will be times where this board will need to make votes on things. And we're going to continue to work together, administration and the board, to try and figure out what those discussions look like. And that's what we're doing. We're doing that all the time. And that's what we need to be doing to help keep this community together. Is there anything that you believe you need to ask of this board, or any more input that you need from us, right now? And we can't really necessarily talk about all those things, but perhaps we could agendize that for future meetings.
Well, I think it's clear. I mean, as I looked around the room, we certainly can work on some gating criteria, and we can work on trying to see what we can come up with that we think could be palatable for the district in terms of keeping us continuing to move forward, and bring that back to you. I think November 11th, my hope is that you'll be willing to take a vote on the future of what model we should use based on the experience that we have between now and then. We'll have another report to show you the data and how we're progressing on those internal and external factors. But what I guess I really want you to understand is you're very good people, and this is a very difficult situation to have to work through, particularly with a new superintendent who doesn't understand the district completely yet, or hasn't had a chance to meet anybody face to face without a mask on. So I appreciate your support. We all do. And I recognize how tough this is for you, trying to work through this. And I'm sorry that you've had to work through this very much, but I do appreciate you, and I appreciate your perspectives, and we will continue to develop a very strong partnership and relationship and working together, and there will come a day when we can talk about something other than this, and I very much look forward to that too.
Is there anything else, Dr. Siebert?
No, I appreciate it.
Okay. Moving on to the next part of our meeting. We actually have committee reports to get to. And as you know, we rotate the order in which committees report out. And this time up, first up this month is the F&F committee given by Corey Montiel.
Thank you, President Como. The F&F Committee, Facilities and Finance, met earlier this week, and we had 6 discussion items. The first of which was the HVAC plasma ionization, which was discussed at a prior meeting. Engineers from Ring and Dutchow, Ring and Do, consulting engineers, were in attendance to discuss their review of Rose Glen's HVA system to identify the next logical steps to optimize our systems across the district. They recommended the following: maximize outside air rates, recirculation rates, air filtration, and systems cleaning. They recommend these steps to be taken prior to the installation of cleaning systems such as plasma ionization.
Okay. Any questions or discussion on that? Okay, Corey.
Thank you. I would note that the discussion was very detailed. They had quite a few representatives. So if anybody in the community has questions, look at that meeting. It was very good. The second discussion item was a monthly budget report, which was presented. We were informed that revenues are lagging at this time compared to last year. Pay to ride the buses or transportation revenue is a concern due to half of the normal number of applications and virtual and eAchieve students not needing transportation. Student fee revenue is also behind compared to last year, although we have started to see an uptick in activity this month. Expenditures continue to be within budgeted limits for both the general and special education fund. The district is operating in accordance with their approved budget and all other funds as well.
Questions or discussion on this? All right, Corey?
Thank you. The next discussion item was an update on the 2020-2021 budget levy development. The committee was updated on the current estimates for the 2020-2021 budget and tax levy. On October 15th, DPI will certify the district's equalization and aid voucher participation levels, which will enable the business office to calculate the final tax levy and rate. At this time, a drop in the tax rate from last year's rate of $8.18 to a rate right around $8.01 is anticipated. It's the mill rate. Final approval of the 2020-21 budget levy is scheduled at a special board meeting on October 26th at 5:30 p.m.
Any comments, questions, discussion? We've had a lot of discussion on the budget. And we will continue that. We'll pass a budget at the end of October here, and we actually start up our discussion for the following year pretty much the month right after. So Darren is kind of, keeps us moving on that one. Corey?
Thank you. The next discussion item is COVID-19 cost report. The committee has and will be updated periodically on COVID-19 related expenses and federal reimbursement initiatives. To date, we have spent $3.8 million in tangible items, including cleaning supplies, plexiglass, and PPE, technology to improve our virtual offering, additional staffing for eAchieve, nursing, and contact tracers, unemployment compensation costs. Some of these items will be funded by ESSER grant, FEMA, or reimbursed through other governmental aid. But at this point, it's unclear how much. Since last March, the district has also planned for the possible utilization of fund balance.
Questions or comments on this? Okay, Corey?
Thank you. The second to last discussion item was pupil selection finance report. Our third Friday count is now complete, and we are down 429 full-time equivalent students. The funding formula is based on a 3-year average, so we will not feel the financial impact this year. The full impact will likely be felt over the next 2 fiscal years.
And there's one more topic. Any discussion or questions on that? All right.
Thank you. And the last discussion item was employee health clinic. Over the last several months, the committee has been reviewing alternative delivery models to our current employee health clinic. Next month, the F&F committee will hear additional information at the regular meeting. In December, the F&F committee will once again discuss this issue and will be considering whether or not to recommend to the board a change in the delivery model. The current partnership agreement runs through the end of 2021. The clinic partners are aware of this review process. Findings to date have been shared and responses to their additional questions have been addressed.
Any questions, comments? All right.
Mr. President, that concludes the F&F report.
Thank you very much. Now moving on to teaching and learning, given by Greg.
Thank you, Mr. President. The last Teaching and Learning Committee meeting was held on October 6, 2020 at 6 p.m. in the boardroom here at the Lintone Building. One action item and for discussion information items appear on your agenda for teaching and learning this evening. The one action item is for the approval of Education for Employment Plan and Academic and Career Planning update. Molly Hobbenshield, our Career and Technical Education Coordinator, and Rachel Herman, our Director of Secondary Learning, presented the Education for Employment Plan for fall of 2020 as required by DPI's PI 26. PI 26 also includes academic and career planning at the secondary level, and this update was provided as well. On a vote of 5-0, the Teaching and Learning Committee approved the district's Education for Employment Plan as presented. We request board approval, and I so move.
Is there a second to that? Second by Mr. Baumgart. Discussion? Comments? Okay, Sue, please take the roll call vote.
Kurt O'Brien.
Aye.
Patrick McCaffrey.
Aye.
Greg Dietz.
Aye.
Amanda Roddy.
Aye.
William Baumgart. Diane Voigt. Aye. Corey Montiel.
Aye.
Karen Reinacek. Aye. Joseph Como.
Aye. Passes 9-0. Greg?
Thank you. The first discussion information item was Stagecraft and Drama Curriculum Update. The drama stagecraft courses are currently piloting learning targets and rubrics aligned to the Wisconsin Theater Standards. Rachel Herman, our Director of Secondary Learning, along with drama teachers Nate Barish from West High School and Caitlin Stone from North High School, presented an overview of these rubrics to the committee and will be requesting that these targets and rubrics are adopted and can be fully implemented during the second semester of the 2020-2021 school year. This will be an action item at the November Teaching and Learning Committee meeting.
Any questions, comments? Yes, Kurt?
Yeah, I want to bring up something because I think it's important to, it's part of not believing what people assume. During teaching and learning, I asked the question, how are they managing stagecraft in this hybrid virtual world? And I think what a lot of people miss about sometimes what you think is not good is maybe even better. And when you're working with a classroom of 35 kids, none of them get individualized attention. You just don't have the time. So what they've found is that by cutting the class sizes in half, during the time the kids are in the school, they can really work with them and improve the educational quality of what they're trying to accomplish because they can give them more direct instruction. And all kids get that 2 days a week instead of no kids getting it 4 days a week. So to say hybrid is worse than face-to-face, not if you have too many kids in a classroom to give the type of quality education these teachers told us they were able to give under the situation they've been forced into. So that's why I try to bring to the point that this idea that what we did was not good or could have been better if it would have been face-to-face, they really didn't confirm that. They said they felt in some ways it was better. Not that they were against going back full face-to-face, but we shouldn't assume always that just because we have to do something, it's not as good as what was there before, because that's quite often not true.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, Greg?
The second discussion information item was social emotional learning update. Luke Pinion, our Director of Student Services, provided an update regarding district-driven efforts and development around social emotional learning for grades 4K through 12.
Questions or comments on this? And I just wanted to point out that over the last, Joe, how long have you been on board? 6 years?
This is year number 7.
Okay, so 6+ right now. I mean, when you came on, Joe, you know, Dr. Cook, you really changed the dynamics of this. And I had commented on how we, as a board, and some of us on this board took this vote, we had a number of us had taken a vote to essentially eliminate all but one counselor at the elementary level. And we had very few psychologists and social workers back then. So, you know, Joey, you've worked really hard to, I think, put together really good services for our students. And it's really been growing over the years. And, you know, I know you're a pretty humble guy, but I'd like to thank you for those efforts. And your team, and I know you're a team guy, that you have really built a wonderful team to help our students in this area. And do you want to make some comments on that?
Well, I mean, you just hit on it. I mean, we have an excellent team in our psych social work counselor group. We've got very collaborative principals that have helped us make this decision. We've got a very strong team of student services directors here. As we've spread social and emotional learning across the system, our teaching and learning department has truly been instrumental in helping us make that move. So yeah, we made some decisions a few years ago as to how to get things in alignment. And once that was done, then our staff principals really took that and ran. So we have excellent people working here, and you know, giving them the opportunity has really let them shape what we're doing right now. So we're very fortunate.
Thank you to everyone that's involved in the team effort throughout our district on this. Appreciate it. Greg?
Okay. The third discussion information item was a middle school schedule update. The middle school administrative team, along with representative teacher team, has examined the entire middle school schedule, as well as current enrollment trends, course offerings, delivery models, and desired learning outcomes as part of the review process. While administration sees this process unfolding over time, some preliminary steps have been taken in the overall transition to a new middle level schedule. Rob Bennett, principal of Les Middle School, Bob Blessington, principal of Horny Middle School, and Jason Sadowski, principal of Butler Middle School, joined by teachers Ryan Green and Jamie Dringenberg, presented the results of their work to the Teaching and Learning Committee. Their presentation included moving from a 7-period to an 8-period modified block day, having the house concept of teachers in common core academic classes, and each student being assigned an advisor. Their presentation was also included in your Friday board packet. This team will come seeking final approval on their recommendations at our December Teaching and Learning Committee meeting.
Yes, Stan.
I just want to comment on how impressed I am with the collaborative effort that's taken shape over the last few months in that program. But they opened it up compared to a year ago when there were some decisions that were being made where the teachers felt they weren't having a voice. This is one example that they were given a chance to.
Right. To bring it back, second time. Yep. Good. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Okay, Greg?
Okay. The fourth discussion information item was the review of overnight field trips. Jody Landish, Assistant Principal of Teaching and Learning, introduced the subject of COVID pandemic and how it has put student travel in-state, out-of-state, and internationally to our attention. The Teaching and Learning Committee discussed the practice of approving overnight field trips and whether a change in process and board policy may be warranted. In November, this will be discussed further with action possibly taken at that time.
Questions or comments on that? Okay, Greg?
Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes the Teaching and Learning Committee report for this evening. Our next meeting will be held on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020 at 6 p.m. here in the boardroom.
Thank you. Moving on to Government Relations Committee. Ms. Roddy.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have no report tonight.
Okay, thank you. And moving on to Safety and Security, given by Ms. Ranichek.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do not have a report tonight, but our next meeting is coming up on Monday, October 19th at 6 p.m. right here in the boardroom.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Human Resources and Compensation Committee, given by Mr. O'Brien.
Wow, I'm excited. Have my notes here. Well, we did have a couple discussion items. We reviewed discussion on compensation for administrators, non-unit managers, and support staff. The HR committee discussed the goals for salary increases for the 2021 school year, why we consider teacher-based wages in closed session. Other employment groups' wages were discussed in open session. The HR compensation committee received information on historical wage adjustments for hourly staff and the consumer price index. We hope to provide a recommendation for approval next month on these matters. The second discussion item.
Any questions or comments on that? Okay, Kurt.
Second discussion item was the review reading of revisions to the professional staff and support staff handbooks. Each year, the administration reviews the employee handbook and makes recommendations for changes based on a variety of items such as budget, ease of administration, and understanding, and also employee suggestions. The committee and board are provided with the portions of the handbooks that contain the significant changes. Following committee board discussion, any needed changes will be made and brought back for committee and board approval in November. Recommendations for changes are provided in your packet, not significant changes. The official handbook, once approved, is valid online only to make available all hyperlinks and ensure the reader is using the most up-to-date.
Any questions or comments on that? Okay, Kurt.
And lastly, we did receive a COVID update, which has the cumulative data. I know a lot of people have asked about cumulative data for the district. So those spreadsheets it was presented by Mr. Cook, and they contain all the detailed cumulative data. I know we generally just talk about snapshots, but in that spreadsheet's cumulative, and that's a public record for those who would like to have it. Mr.
Is that something we can put up on our website? Are we planning on putting it up on our website?
Yeah, we can build we can expand the tables that we currently have to show the total data. We've just been trying to show our current data, but that's a next evolution for us if the board would like.
Okay. Kurt?
So, Mr. President, that concludes my report.
Wow, that was almost a record for you, Kurt. That was pretty quick.
I'm learning from Mr. Baumgart.
There you go. There you go. Moving on to Policy Committee, speaking of Mr. Baumgart. Take it away.
Guess what?
Are you going to beat him?
Oh, yeah, easy. We have nothing to report other than we have a meeting next Tuesday just to catch up on some stuff that needs to be caught up on. Tuesday at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's all.
Saw how that worked, Kurt? My crystal ball works once in a while.
That's what you call board jujutsu.
Well, I guarantee after that month, it's going up.
Thank you, Bill. And moving on to technology, given by Ms. Voigt.
I do have a report, even though we haven't met. Although the Technology Committee has not met recently, obviously, from everything we've been seeing, Steve Schulman and the Technology Department and Instructional Technology team have been very, very busy working with staff to support our instruction virtually. So there are a couple different topics. It's not really discussion items, it's more report. And I think several of the things we've talked about already this evening are built into this. That gives you a little bit of an insight. The Instructional Technology team has run several key virtual professional development sessions to prepare staff for the school year and the upcoming live streaming at the secondary level. The team, consisting of Wendy Liska, Brian Yearling, and Christine Bouchard, has also recently run planning sessions around optimizing audio and video while doing live streaming and face-to-face instruction simultaneously. What we have on the next one, we have our example of a WebEx Teams cart here. They purchased and are deploying WebEx team carts at each elementary and middle school building. The high schools will have 2 of them. And this is the same device that we use here for board meetings to allow Patrick to be here with us, even though he's at home. So the device has already been used successfully in several buildings when a teacher is quarantined and is instructing from home while their students are still in school. So that would be that delivery model, I think, that Kurt was referring to as a potential for teachers. WebEx Teams and meetings continue to be the backbone of our virtual instructional platform. Over the past 30 days, we have had 22,388 virtual meetings involving 220,825 participants. This resulted in 614,708 minutes of meeting time. On an average virtual Monday, we're seeing typically 30,000 participants in meetings during the course of the day. So it's working, the WebEx kind of exposures. I found the next report item very interesting. Significant effort went into our K-5 and K-4 iPad rollout to new students this fall. Because many students were virtual and did not have assistance from an in-building staff to orient them on their device, we created a quick start guide and that pushed out with the iPads in the district. In conjunction with the Teaching and Learning Department, IT facilitated a drive-through pickup of 4K iPads for all 4K students. During all virtual instruction model last spring, 4K families struggled connecting to their teachers using an array of personal technology. So the decision was made just before school started to issue iPads to all 4K students. And this resulted in a short time frame to deploy 736 K-5 and 546 K-4 iPads. Say that my granddaughter was quite impressed to have access to one. Infrastructure-related technology. Middle schools and middle school and South High School construction and the IT areas have wrapped up just prior to school starting, and significant technology updates have been happening at all 4 locations. All new network wiring, network switches, access points, 1 new and 2 relocated data closets, along with the new IP network clocks and speakers. 185 new televisions, along with new Apple TVs, were put in place. And 35 new interactive smart TVs were also installed. Additional upgrades will continue as the Phase 2 construction spaces are finished. In an answer to one of our topics earlier this evening, for students with challenging home Wi-Fi needs, the district has purchased 60 cellular hotspots and will be distributing them to families in need of virtual instruction support. Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes the technology report.
Thank you, Diane. Moving on to our other business, are there any recommendations for future items to agendize at the full board meeting or suggestions to our committee chairs for those topics? Yes, Corey.
Thank you. I guess a suggestion for committee chairs. I've heard from a number of constituents, and they spoke about this really well. They'd like to, and I'd like to, try to develop some sort of system where teachers can have I don't want to say a complaint line, but some sort of anonymous way or some way that they're not traced backwards to give some sort of feedback as to what's going on in the school, whether it's COVID related or something else. I have heard, I don't know if it's true, but if it is, I'm disappointed that some teachers feel that they don't feel comfortable bringing those things either to the principal or someone else for whatever reason. So possibly we could look into developing some sort of pipeline that gives teachers, staff, administrators, well, probably not administrators, a pipeline to try to make their voices heard. It's something I noticed at PTO when I was there. I dealt with teachers all the time. As you get to the board level, it appears to be, maybe it's just me, some sort of hesitancy to approach the board. So I don't know how we do it. I don't know, but I think there's a way. Put our heads together and try to get that pipeline of information, because I think the feedback is vital. So I don't know who would do it.
We'll put that in Dr. Siebert's hands to maybe put some thought into that, and we can figure out where that might go. And now is not the time to talk on that particular topic, but
sure.
we'll see where we go forward. But I'm sure we all have opinions on that now. But
You're a little late, Mr. Como.
Hold back.
You're a little late. I mean,
so
there's a difference between when you put a subject out there and you spend a long time advocating for it. I think that's.
I didn't advocate for anything, Mr. O'Brien.
Talk about me.
Okay. So anyways, he was trying to.
On that comment, I think we have to talk just a minute. That's an interesting issue, but we have to be awful cautious about breaking the ordinary chain of command. If a teacher is going to come straight to the board, we've got a different issue going on here than conversation. They've got a principal and they've got directors or whatever they've got, but
yep, and
you need to be cautious about. And all people know about this because people will talk to me, but I do not take careful not to take those kind of things and bounce past the principal.
Yep. Yep, and...
I just want to start the discussion.
Yeah, and that's why I passed it off to Dr. Siebert, so we wouldn't actually begin the discussion right now. And it may or may not get agendized. We'll just have to kind of work through that. It's a suggestion.
No, I wasn't talking, let's be clear.
It's a suggestion.
First of all, I agree with you. That's the point.
No, we're stopping this discussion right now. Are there any other suggestions for items to be added to the agenda? All right, seeing none, we do have a need for a closed session for item C. Do I have a motion to that degree? Yes, Karen. You have to read it.
I move that we adjourn to executive session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85, parenthesis 1, parenthesis E, for deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Oakdale offered to purchase tax keys WAKC 1360198, WAKC 137700202, and WAKC 1377003, and bus contract with First Student.
Is there a second to that? Second by Corey. Sue, will you please take the roll call vote?
Amanda Roddy.
Aye.
Diane Voigt. Aye. Corey Montijo.
Aye.
Kurt O'Brien.
Aye.
Karen Reinacek. Aye. Greg Dietz.
Aye.
William Baumgart.
Aye.
Patrick McCaffrey.
Aye.
Joseph Como.
Aye, passes 9-0. We will go into closed session. Why don't we take a 5-minute break? And we may have a need to reconvene into open session. I really don't know how long this will take, but could be 15 minutes, could be 30 minutes, could be an hour. So just to anybody who would like to stay, who's in the audience now.
Joel's got the sign up. I don't have it on.
I just can't give you an exact time. But you're welcome to stay and visit us when we're in open session.